Right, folks, this is a new podcast from the two Mikes, and I'm going to give you old energy boy, MG, to introduce it.
Yeah, we've edited out all the nonsense from Mike Parry, so it might be a bit shorter than usual.
Ha, 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 ha.
Who are you?
Well, he's saying we've got a bunch of guys here, and we have to continue.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the two Mikes on Talk Sport. It's Champions League night, so we'll be looking ahead to all the action from Manchester City against Celtic to Bayern Munich against Atletico Madrid. We'll be talking sitcoms as well, and we're having a visit from a man with a dog. And as if all that is not enough, we've got a double dose of Porky features. Postman Pork, postponed from yesterday due to Rod Stewart calling the show and bizarrely telling us all that he was a very close friend of Mike Parry's. And Ask Porky, the one place where you can get invaluable advice and solutions to problems you don't know how to fix. 08717 22 33 44. You're listening to the two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. We're in for Hawksbee and Jacobs all week, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good afternoon. Good afternoon, I should say, to the friend of the stars, Mr. Mike Parry.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Mike, to give me such a big introduction. You got a bit confused there as to what time of the day.
Well, do you know why?
You?
Well, you know why? Because we do so many shows, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, on Saturday we do a show that's in the morning. This week we're doing shows in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Last Saturday we did one in the morning.
That's right.
And a couple of weeks before that we were doing shows in the morning.
Quite
so
right.
occasionally I do get slightly confused about when the shows start.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Sorry about that. Also, my sleep pattern was slightly disturbed this morning.
Why?
By these characters who came back, who were here about 2 weeks ago, outside of my apartment window.
Yes.
You know, sort of banging away, scraping, drilling on a cherry picker, literally right outside my window.
Really?
Two guys talking to each other, which is very disconcerting when you're 3 stories up.
What were they doing?
Well, it turns out they were painting. They're repainting and pointing all the windows.
Oh, really?
In the whole block, yeah.
Golly.
And they've got this massive, great sort of crane that goes up and down on wheels and makes a terrible noise.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more unsettling for me than somebody literally outside your window.
I totally agree.
It's very odd. It's a very odd feeling.
Well, it's almost invasive,
and they
isn't it?
started at sort of 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Shocking.
Have you done your Christmas tree yet, by the way?
I haven't got it yet, no.
Because,
hopefully this weekend, I think.
Because I've come across a great... look, we're going to talk about Champions League.
I have started doing some Christmas shopping.
I've started doing a bit of Christmas shopping as well.
Have you?
And I've got another story about that as well.
All right. Great.
But, no, I mean, Christmas is...
Got any of your celebrity fans coming on today?
We're working on a few people.
Oh, really?
No, not working on them. I mean, I don't mean we're working anybody over or anything like that. You know what I mean? I mean, what I mean is that we are talking to associates in the business. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no. What I was going to say is twice, right? Twice since last Friday.
Yeah.
When did we work last Friday? I can't remember.
No,
we didn't.
Yes, we did.
No, we did. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then over the weekend, and then I was round and about.
We worked on the weekend as well. Worked on Saturday.
We did actually. That's true. And I've gone into restaurants, /bars, if you see what I mean.
You mean pubs?
Know what I mean? Well, no.
You mean pubs?
No. More upmarket establishments.
Is that
to be
right?
perfectly honest, more upmarket establishments. And on both of them, I've seen the tree in the corner.
Right.
And I've seen exactly the same faces hung on the branches.
Faces? What, you mean not Christmas decorations?
No, not Christmas decorations.
Well, not done out as Christmas decorations.
There are a few baubles, right, like a normal Christmas tree, but what dominates the tree, and this has happened twice now, and I reckon it's going to be this year's phenomenon for Christmas trees, and all the trendies are going to get into this, okay?
Yeah.
And what they've got is, they've got up to 40 faces hanging on branches on the trees of people who've died this year.
Really?
You know, at the start of this year...
It's a bit morbid, isn't it?
That's what I think. Well, it's quotes tribute, isn't it?
Tree tribute.
Yeah. So at the start of this year, right, do you remember we all said, oh, blimey, David Bowie's died, and then somebody else died. Terry Wogan was in, or something like that.
There was a sort of a succession of very well-loved and very famous people.
What's his name? The two Ronnies, the smaller Ronnie.
Ronnie Corbett.
Ronnie Corbett and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Lovely people, all of them. But I think now we've now got into the kind of,
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali, yes, absolutely right. We've now got into the public mourning of the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree's become the mourning tree.
I see.
And
how unusual. I've not seen that.
Well, I couldn't believe it. And what they are is that there's a disc with the face of the person I'm talking about.
Right.
And then
just tell you the name?
No, it doesn't. It's just the face, so you're supposed to know it. And then there's a white cord, and the white cord is the bit that hangs on the tree.
All right.
But for instance, I first noticed it when I thought, hang on, I know that guy, but why is he on that tree?
Yeah.
And do you know who it was?
Who?
It was the actor who was latterly in Dallas as the sort of arch-villain who opposed J.R. Ewing.
Yeah.
But probably the film I most remember him in was one of the Bruce Willis films when he was the guy who was trying to move a jumbo jet back onto the runway.
Oh, yeah.
In the Bruce Willis film.
What, Die Hard?
Die Hard, in one of the Die Hard films.
Right.
A guy with a big fat face and blonde hair.
I'm not sure who you mean.
Not a particularly
You don't mean
attractive
Rutger Hauer?
Hey?
Rutger Hauer, you don't mean him, do you?
I might mean him, but he appeared in Dallas as a real villain, you know, a businessman, a scheming businessman who bought the ranch next to Southfork. Yeah, he bought the ranch next to Southfork, and then he dammed up the river so that the river that runs through Southport, where the cattle need the water to survive, because Jock Ewing had huge herds of cattle. Sorry, what are you laughing at?
Wait, telling me this?
I'm telling you all this, yeah.
We have Champions League football tonight.
Yes,
though.
I know. We'll get on to that in a minute. We'll get on to that in a minute.
Bobcat Bob might be coming to the end of his time at Swansea.
Who's saying this?
Well, it's just what's being said.
Well, you know, you shouldn't listen to rumours, mate. I know. Anyway, the point of my story is, right, I've decided, because I went and scouted around at the weekend to see what I could do this year regards Christmas tree,
Right.
I am actually getting a Christmas cactus. I am, seriously.
Why?
Because they're trendy and they're in vogue.
Because they're trendy.
Yeah.
But you don't do anything that's trendy.
Well...
there is nothing about you that is trendy. I mean, look at your shirt. By the way, what's that big plastic bag you've got with you?
This one.
Yeah. What is that?
Well, I've been under pressure
It's not exactly
time-wise.
trendy walking around with a big plastic bag.
I've been under pressure time-wise recently because I had to do 2.5 weeks of jury service. And,
I thought you weren't allowed to mention that.
Yeah, I can. I just can't tell you anything that happened inside the jury room.
Okay.
In fact, if I did, I could be arrested.
Yeah.
And by the way, some things happened in there which you wouldn't want to, you know.
Really?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
like what?
Well, I can't say anything about what happened inside the jury room.
Right.
But anyway, so what happened is I suddenly got a message, you know, saying, you know, you haven't picked up your drugs.
Your drugs?
Well-
So you've got drugs in a plastic bag?
Well,
What sort of drugs?
Well, this is 2 months' supply of the tablets that keep me alive.
Really?
Only 1/3 of my heart works. And no.
What have you brought them in here for?
Well, because I picked them up on the way to the station this morning on the way into
Well,
work.
I mean, we don't come into work that early. Why don't you go and get them and bring them home again?
Because I've got things to do early on. You know,
Like what?
Well, you know what I've got to do.
You haven't got anything to do.
I send you a dozen messages a morning saying, have you
And
done
I
this?
don't
Have you
reply
done
to
that?
them.
No, you don't reply to them because you usually haven't done anything. You know what I mean? I mean, for instance...
Well, I was busy trying to avoid the men outside my window.
Did you look at those new images of me that I sent you overnight?
I couldn't open them.
You couldn't open
No.
them? Right. So it's just typical, isn't it? Anyway, so what... I don't know what your problem is.
I know you think that I do
Hang on.
nothing at all, but
Yeah.
actually I have quite a few things to do as
Oh,
well.
really?
I have to buy Christmas presents for my family.
Oh, yes.
Right? I have to go and pick things up that I've ordered, which have been taken to
You
the wrong
asked me
delivery
about
point.
this bag.
Yeah, well, you're taking too long to answer the question.
No, this will keep me going now.
How much does all that then?
How much do you mean? What
Well,
do
how
you
much
mean?
does it cost?
Doesn't cost me anything.
You get all that free.
No, I've told you. I pay the £114 a year or whatever it is,
Right.
and then I get them because I'm a
It
critical
looks like you're a
case.
drain on the NHS.
I'm not draining on the NHS.
Yeah, you are.
And
There are thousands of pills there.
there are thousands of pills, definitely. And you have to take them. I have to remember to take them. You know, some people...
Well, where are you going to
unable
leave
to-
them? You're not going to be able to, because we're not going straight home today. are
Well, I'm not sure about that. I
we? I mean, we have to go into the West End. You're not going to
Yeah.
drag those into the West End with you, are you?
I might have them couriered home.
Couriered home.
Yeah, get a courier to take them home for me.
They won't be there, though, will you?
No, my housekeeper's there today,
Is she?
so she could take them in.
Why doesn't she just come up and get them?
Well, because that would take her a lot of time when you get a bike from
Save
here.
you time, by the way.
Get a bike from here with these on, and you know, I mean, you've got to remember, I'm an emergency.
Would you stop shaking them?
This is what do you call it? A mercy mission.
Yeah.
Mercy mission.
Yeah.
Because
You're
you
in
know.
a chronic state of health, in other words.
No, it's just that, you know, I have a routine I have to keep. By the way, the cactuses can grow to 4 foot tall.
All right.
You can get them in a plant pot.
Yeah.
And you get them from places like Arnott and Mason.
Who? Who are they?
They're
Cactus specialists.
No, they're a trendy Wiltshire-based
Really?
company.
I've
yeah.
never heard of them.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Oh no, hang on, you get them in Covent Garden in London.
Right.
£80 for a 4 foot plant.
80 quid?
Yeah.
Have you gone mad?
No.
Well, how are you going to get it back from Covent Garden? Is it spiky?
No, I'll get it delivered.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, where are you going to put it up, though? In your stockbroker belt penthouse or in the one in Gosport? Or are you going to get two?
I will have two.
What about Orwell Quay?
I haven't decided yet.
Right.
Because
I don't know what to say.
I put one in the window with flashing lights on it. That's what I like.
Right.
And then when I come back from the pub and I look up and to my penthouse, I
Yeah.
see these flashing lights. I think that's fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
that is it.
Right.
You know, that's mine. You
That's
know what I mean?
my
It's brilliant.
flashing
I love to.
cactus.
Yeah, it will be a flashing cactus. That's right. Yeah.
Can you put any presents under it?
Might do. Might have people around,
Do you put presents like for yourself?
No, not for myself.
You don't have anybody there, do you? You live on your own.
No. I just don't go into, the details of my Christmas.
I bet you do. I bet you put presents under there and you open them for yourself.
What do you think I am, Mr. Bean, pushing letters through? Pushing birthday cards through my own door to myself.
Yeah, I do, actually.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. I don't know.
You've got to get past the metal gate first. Anyway, that's a completely nonsensical start to the show. We've got lots more interesting things to talk about. Hopefully, we're going to be talking to Guto Llewellyn about the possibility of Bobcat Bob maybe not lasting out the year because he's not doing too well down in Swansea. That's coming up next on Talk Sport.
Do you know, boy?
Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
We weren't good enough today. We know coming here that Tottenham is a team that is going to press in a real strong, hard way. And I think in terms of competing in duels and coming away with plays, I thought in way too many cases we were second best.
Competing in duels.
Yeah.
Competing in duels.
Yeah.
Coming away second best.
Yeah.
Now, poor old Bobcat Bob has taken a bit of a ribbing from us, but we love him. We think he's great.
We do.
He's only had one win, unfortunately, though. We're going to talk now to Guto Llewellyn, who is the author of the Jack Cast, a co-host, I should say, which is the fans' view on Bobcat Bob. Let's find out how the Swansea fans are feeling. Guto, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you too.
Now, we've made no we haven't hidden the fact that we've kind of made fun of Bobcat Bob just because of not because he's American, but just not because he's American, but just because of some of the things he comes out with, like duels and making plays and all that kind of thing. What's the fans' actual view of him at this point?
It's not particularly positive, I have to say.
Right.
But I mean, it has to be pointed out. Most fans weren't too positive feeling too positive when he was given the job in the first place.
Right.
We didn't really think his credentials were those that you'd usually expect from a man being linked with a Premier League job. So he had plenty of doubters before he even began, and sadly, the nature of performances and results since he's taken over have really confirmed many of our worst fears.
And is it down to him, or is it some of the players' fault as well?
Well, of course, the squad is poor. I mean, what we're seeing now is the culmination of months of mismanagement. I think over the summer, the American takeover took over everybody's attentions at the club, and so many people took their eyes off the ball in terms of strengthening what was already a weak squad. I mean, we had a poor season last year, and they just didn't really learn the lessons from that. And the approach to transfers was poor. Most of our biggest deals, selling and buying, were left till very late in the window. And the result of that is a squad that's just not at the Premier League standard. I think, bar a few individuals, it's largely a championship squad. So his hands are tied in that sense, but still, his decision-making is chopping and changing. He does not seem to have a really coherent plan at the moment. And it's frightening because he himself, the impression he gives us is that he himself doesn't feel convinced that he's up to the job.
Thing is, Guido, that you've got to have a relationship of communication between a manager and the fans. And, you see it in people like David Moyes and Alan Pardew and all that. The problem is that because Bob is American, he is talking a different language. And I don't mean that he's not on the same wavelength as the fans. I mean he's literally talking a different language. My broadcasting colleague here, Mike, and I, we lived and worked in America, for a good 10 years. And Americans do talk in different phrases and expressions and that kind of stuff. And that will have alienated him. And that makes me wonder why the owners of the club, and I know there's obviously an American influence there.
He had quite a good record, though, didn't he, in international football and in MLS and all that?
Yeah, sure, but it's not the English Premier League, is
True.
it, Guito? And that is a completely different ball game.
That's the point.
Different ball game.
Different ball game.
Yeah, of course, to use another American phrase there. Yeah. I mean, his record in charge of the US national team can't be disputed. He did great things there, but it's his record since then that raised concerns. I mean, at Egypt it didn't work out, and then he worked in the Norwegian Premier League, which, not that I want to sound disrespectful, but this was a league where the likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Ronny Deila were successful. So if they can be successful there, then anybody can. And then he's been in Ligue 2 in France, and since then I watched quite a lot of League Two, and the standard is poor. It has to be said. So it wasn't good preparation to come over here. I think the point that the language is a bit unfair. I mean, yes, he comes out with a few Americanisms, but he does come from a different culture, and I think we accept that. Of course, we've had. We're quite used to having foreign managers here in Swansea, and
but in a way, in a funny sort of way, foreign managers who are kind of in the Premier League
sound better.
They speak football as a language, whereas the Americans tend not to, do they? Because they've sort of, for them, it's kind of a new game. It's not like they're historically steeped in it, if you know what I mean.
No, they definitely take a different attitude to it. Not that I want to generalise or anything, but they do. And sadly, I think that viewpoint, in terms of Bob Bradley anyway, is proving unsuccessful so far.
Well, that's right. And Hugh Jenkins has kind of fallen in the estimation of the of the fans as well, because he was once kind of touted as one of the great saviours, building this great model of a smaller club that does brilliantly, produces great managers who then go on to bigger and better things. And then the sort of Gary Monk escapade happened, and it's all gone wrong since then, really, hasn't it?
Hugh Jenkins' fall from grace is astonishing. Really, he could do no wrong at one point, and he did rescue, along with the other members of the former board. They did rescue the club when it was on the verge of extinction. Really, when you look at the way things were going down the bottom of League Two, and they did drag us up to the Premier League, and their work over the years was incredible. It's one of the great fairy tales of modern football in this country. It's absolutely amazing, but. There is a feeling that they just did not do their job properly in selling this club. They were too desperate to offload it. We don't feel as fans that they really did due diligence on when they sold the new owner, and they did have a duty to find the best deal possible for the club, to sell us on to the best new owners possible. And we really are yet to be convinced that the right checks were made. And a sad thing to say is that the fans feel they sold the club without really considering the club's best interest.
You see, the thing is, Guito, that is where a fan has no defence and no position in the future of its club at all. I mean, I got involved with Blackburn about 3 or 4 years ago, and the situation there was desperate. Fans hated the new owners. They hated the man they appointed as manager. They were protesting every week, walking down with flags. Is it, outside the ground, is it going to come to that at Swansea?
It's not too far off that. It really is. I mean, Swansea is quite a unique case. The fans were extremely involved in getting the former board in charge in the first place.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, but we're not a quiet fan base. When the takeover was announced, fans were very, very vocal in their concerns, and they were worried. I mean, a lot of clubs have just welcomed the money and said, great stuff. That wasn't the attitude of Swansea. We do prioritise stability over investment.
Yes.
The fans are angry at the moment. I mean, there was a trust AGM last night. The supporters trust has been pushed to the edges, really, since this takeover was finalised. Fans are deeply concerned about that, and I don't think...
But will it make... Sorry to interrupt you, we're running out of time here, Guito. I mean, will it make any difference at all if they sack Bobcat Bob and bring somebody else in? I mean, it's a massive 6 points coming up.
Well, it will if he's
Saturday.
a better manager.
Well, but it doesn't always work that way, does it? I mean, Swansea taking on Sunderland, right? I mean, if they lose that game, that's going to be terrible news.
It is. It's a huge game for us at the moment, and fans aren't very confident. Whether sacking Bob Bradley can save us from relegation at this point, I'm not entirely sure. I think it would take a heck of a good manager to keep this current squad up in the situation we found ourselves in. So while he is completely out of his depth, sadly, sacking him may not give us the quick fix that we're hoping for.
No, indeed. Sounds like a job for Sam Allardyce, Porky, doesn't it? Guito, thank you very much indeed. Guito Llewellyn there, who is, of course, a co-host of the Jack Cast down in Swansea. We should talk some more about that.
I don't think Sam would go there. I think it's I think he regards it, or I would regard it, as a basket case.
Well, you may say that, but I mean, he may regard himself as a basket case and wants to get back in.
No.
This is Talk Sport.
Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say to you. It's late September and I really should be back at school.
Thank goodness they played this version and not that horrendous version of you that's on Too Much TV on YouTube, where you're scaring the pants off Matt Holland a couple of years ago's Christmas party.
As usual, following a delightful chat with Rod Stewart yesterday.
Sir Rod.
Sir Roderick,
Yeah.
I should say. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You had to then go, didn't you, dig into the archives and find a bit from the last year's, was it last year's or
No,
year
it was
before?
about 3 years ago, I think.
3 years Christmas party when me and Matt Holland, distinguished
Well, it's
footballer,
not really you and Matt Holland. It's more you.
Gave a rendition of Maggie May.
Clutching Matt Holland, who looks absolutely terrified.
I
think Mrs. Holland was also standing next to him, looked even more terrified.
Listen, mate, on the shoulders of giants, don't worry about that.
Really?
But
Now, Rob has sent me a lovely picture of you on a Christmas tree ornament. Look at that.
Let's have a look.
That's you on a Christmas tree
Oh,
ornament.
that's very nice, isn't
and
it?
Says, he doesn't want to tempt fate or anything, but he's just hung this on his tree.
Yeah.
Lots of people saying you're a complete plank for paying 80 quid for a Christmas cactus as well.
Well, no, listen, referring to the news bulletin there, I opened the show by telling you about all these trees I'm seeing, with all these people have...
you've seen two.
But apparently it's a phenomenon, because I was talking to, a colleague here who said... Sorry?
Who were you talking to?
I was talking to a colleague.
Which one?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Don't know a name,
Just
do
shut
you?
up for Of course I know a name. I'm just not going to get into the detail while I'm trying to
Okay.
tell the story,
All right, go
And what happened was, she said that, it became a phenomenon 2 or 3 weeks ago. People hanging all these images of people who've sadly had their demise this year.
Yes.
And now, right in the middle of the show, Peter Vaughan,
Yes.
a very famous actor from Porridge.
Uh-huh.
Where else was he
What
in?
did he play in Porridge?
Didn't he play the Scottish prison warder? Godber, was it?
Hey?
Was it Godber?
Godber?
It was Godber.
No, Godber was Beckinsale.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Richard Beckinsale.
Richard Beckinsale, right.
Fulton Mackay.
Fulton Mackay.
Was the guy that played the Scottish
right, okay.
warder.
So Peter Vaughan, I know who Peter Vaughan was.
Who was he?
He was Fulton Mackay's mate, who was English and rather more straight-laced.
Oh, well, the guy from Last of the Summer Wine.
Yes, that's
That
him.
guy?
That's him.
Oh, is he the one
that's
that
him.
died?
That's him. That's
Oh,
him.
okay.
That's him. He's the one who's died.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought
he's
they said
died.
he was in Game of Thrones as well.
Yeah, Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Well,
I've never seen
considering-
Game of Thrones, so I wouldn't really know about that.
Ian, who's a Toon fan, says the actor in Dallas you're talking about is George Kennedy.
Yes.
But he was never in the Die Hard
He
movies.
was, honestly.
The movie you referred to with the plane in the snow was one of the airport movies with Burt Lancaster.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. I'm prepared to accept I may be wrong there, but he definitely jumped into the seat of a jumbo jet and tried to put it into reverse and get it back onto
he may well have done.
the runway, and I thought that was a Die
He
Hard
may
film.
well have
But
done.
thank you for correcting
Well,
me.
the Die Hard
That's,
film that's got the plane in it is the one where the plane crashes.
That's
isn't it?
right, yeah.
Unless you're thinking about the other one where the plane takes off with the the South American dictator on it.
No, I'm not thinking about that one.
No?
It's the one in which... what's the name of the lead actor again in Die Hard?
Well, Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis. It's the one in which Bruce Willis suddenly realises he should be dead, but actually the guns that he's been using have got dummy bullets in them,
Yes.
haven't they?
Yeah, well, that's the one. That's the one by the airport, isn't it?
That's the airport one, yeah. Well, I'm sure George Kennedy was in that, but I'm prepared to be
Are you?
corrected by the intelligence of
Okay.
our millions of listeners.
I think we've got the wrong guy, by the way, from the Last of the Summer Wine. I don't think that's the one that's died. So you may have to do
really?
a bit more research.
Oh, no, okay. So he wasn't in Last of the Summer Wine, then?
Well, then he's not the guy that you're talking about from Porridge either.
Well, no, he's not, because he was
So you
in
got
Last
that
of the
guy
Summer
wrong.
Wine. So what's
It
this
shouldn't
guy
be
look
that
like?
difficult, this.
Can't we get an image of this?
I'm sure
this
we
poor
can.
chap who's
Greeny
deceased?
says this. Crazy what's happening to Bobcat Bob. He needs a new goal guard, new offense, and in the final quarter, he'll take it down to the wire.
No, he needs a defence, not an offence. The offence is not working. Get into the defence, Bob.
But
Get it going.
seriously, I mean, if they lose to Sunderland, right?
Yeah.
And they're then absolutely anchored to the bottom of the table, they're in a terrible place. They're going to have to get rid of him.
And you
aren't
have to say, old Davy Moyes is now on a bit of a roll, isn't he? You know,
Well,
he had a
you
very
would-
miserable start to the season, but he's got it going now.
they? You
so-
would back Sunderland to beat them, wouldn't you?
Yes. Yeah, you would, yeah.
Oh,
Definitely.
okay. Peter Vaughan, I see who he was.
Right,
now.
so
Yeah,
look,
he was not.
please.
Yeah, he was not the guy who was the other prison officer. He was another inmate.
Yes, he was. Do you know who I think he was?
So he wasn't in Last of the Summer
I think
Wine.
he was the judge.
No, he wasn't.
I think he was the jail judge.
Was he?
Yeah. I'm gonna have a look
No, I
at
don't
it.
think so.
I think he was. Yeah, excuse me.
No,
I'm
don't
off
talk
mic
off the
there a bit.
microphone.
Yeah, let me see. Where's the
God's
picture?
sake. There's pictures right there.
It's not.
You've lost it, have
It's
you?
gone.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure he was the judge.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a shambles, this show at the moment, isn't
No,
it?
it's not.
Complete
no,
shambles.
It's not a shambles. It's not a shambles.
Now-
It's, we're just sifting through the intelligence data.
Is that right? Yeah, well, unfortunately, not much intelligence going on
Yeah, it's a bit
during
harsh.
the rest of the show. Now,
Yeah.
I've got a Christmas shopping story to tell you, which is slightly disturbing me, right? I ordered some stuff, and I don't want to say what it is or who it's for, because obviously that would
Yes.
give something away.
Yes.
But have you ever done anything called click and collect?
I've seen the signs in shops
Oh,
where,
good.
where presumably you've ordered this online.
Yes.
And then, 12 hours later you go and pick it all up,
Well,
do
it
you?
could be 12 hours later, it could be a couple of days later.
Okay, yep.
You basically go to this place where you bought it from, or
Okay.
whichever the chain is, and you go
Yeah.
and pick it up, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's a well-known supermarket that I bought something from.
Mm.
The problem is that when I go onto the site, it always tells me which is my nearest store.
Right.
Right. Now, the problem is the nearest store for me, actually, by geographically speaking, is on the other side of the river.
Right.
Because I'm right on the south side of the river.
Why can't you go to a store that's nearer and go to the same one every time?
Well, you can, but the problem is that online it defaults back to your nearest store, right?
Oh, really?
So I ordered 3 things, okay? Now, for some reason, instead of giving them as one order,
Right.
they split them up into 2 orders, right? So one thing went to the one that I nominated, which is physically my nearest one, where I
Yes.
don't have to cross the river.
Yes.
So the other one defaulted to the other side of the river.
That's ridiculous. So you've got to make 2
So
trips.
I've now got to make 2 trips, right? Then also to get across the river.
And literally miles apart.
Miles apart
Yeah.
to pick up the 3 things that I
Yes.
wanted to order.
Yes.
And then finally yesterday, when I
Yeah.
was about to go and get the one thing which is closest to me,
Yes.
they sent me another email to say that they were unable to fulfil my order.
Yes.
So the place that I have got to go to, which is where is my nearest shop,
Right.
hasn't got anything.
Right.
So I'm not going to go there at all now.
Well, that's,
so all I'm going to now do is go across the river.
That is a bit of a mess, isn't it?
It's a real mess.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
a bit of a nightmare.
But you see, that's why all this, highfalutin, fancy Dan, click and collect, and all that.
Fancy Dan.
What I do is,
No, because the problem is if you go to the shop itself,
Yes.
they don't have the stuff in stock.
Well,
so you can't buy it.
I went to an Asda. I don't mind saying it's an Asda
Really?
because I've got my car washed there as well.
Okay.
And I said to the guy,
Classy Christmas you're having, are you?
"What?
Having a classy Christmas?
Well, sorry, you're putting down anybody who shops at Asda?
No,
are you?"
I'm saying if that's where you're buying your Christmas presents, then that's perhaps not the best place to go.
I didn't say that. I said I went there to stock up on stuff for the house.
Like what?
Well, all sorts of things. I thought basil. I needed a load of basil.
Basil?
Yeah.
What are you going to make something?
Yeah, I might do. Yeah, I might make stuff over Christmas. I like putting basil into
You're going to make pesto?
meat.
Are you going to make pesto?
I don't know what pesto is, but
You don't know what pesto
but I
is?
like putting basil into gravy
Uh-huh.
and that kind of stuff. Anyway, the point of my story is
How bizarre.
I find supermarket shopping very therapeutic.
Do you?
Walking up and down the aisles and just
Do you
taking
still
in.
pretend that you don't know where things are so you can try and pick up women?
Well, that used to be a tactic some years ago, but I don't now sort of pretend to be helpless and hopeless and always ask a rather attractive lady where funny enough, I did ask a rather attractive lady where the bacon was on my last visit to Asda. I couldn't find it. But anyway, the point of the story is this.
Yeah.
That I go there and I know exactly what I want and what I'm looking for because I've got a trolley in front of me.
Have you
But
got a list
B,
as well?
No, I haven't got a list except
You
in
don't
my
take
head.
a list?
No.
Why not?
I don't need a list. And B,
You can't even remember what day it is. What do you
and
mean
B,
you don't need a list?
B, I often find there are things inside that sort of giant sort of hypermarket, as they're called, which I need, which I don't even know I need.
Yeah.
And so I am.
Well, you could be in there for days.
I could be.
How much did you spend?
£186. What's wrong with that?
For a table for one, literally, to stock a house
no,
where only one person lives.
No, but I mean,
That's a lot of basil, that.
For instance, I thought I might run out of sugar, maybe
How
in
much
the new
sugar
year.
did you buy?
A £2 bag.
A £2 bag
Yeah,
of sugar. Well,
yeah.
seeing how much sugar you put in coffee, I'm not surprised.
No.
That'll last you about a week.
I never drink coffee at home. I always drink tea, and I
Take
don't
the
have
time, by the
any
way.
sugar in tea.
Yeah,
Well,
we have to stop talking now.
Yeah, I wouldn't
You
worry
get
too
in
much
trouble with
about
the
that.
producer. We've got a best special guest coming on next.
Oh, great. I'm delighted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you?
Yes.
Do you know who it is?
Yes.
Good. Okay, that's coming up next.
It's a wonderful night, gotta take it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, gotta shake it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Coming up a little bit later on, it's Ask Porky. So if you need a problem solving, a question answered, this is the place to do it. Send it at the two mics on Twitter and hashtag it Ask a Porky. We're also going to have a peek into Porky's mailbag a little while as well. Right now, though, we're going to talk to a man who's made 56 appearances for England, played for Chelsea, played for West Ham, currently playing over in the United States of America. And it's time to say a very good afternoon to Mr. Joe Cole. Joe, very good afternoon to you.
Hello, chaps. How are you?
Hi,
Yeah,
Joe.
very well indeed. Thanks
well,
very much
thanks,
for coming on. Are you back in this part of the world for Christmas?
Yes, I've got it's a long, obviously playing over in America. It's a long time off. So I've got 3 months off to enjoy my Christmas, enjoy the New Year, and first time in forever. So
Right.
yeah, I'm gonna look forward to it.
Joe, you're constantly looking for new challenges. You've done so much for football in this country. In addition to all your medals, your honours, you're trying to help out at Coventry. What's the challenge in America and how's it going?
Yeah, it's going very well. The owner's, he's very serious. I don't know what you know about American soccer, but
Yeah.
it's like the league that we was in last year is like a rogue league. It's not affiliated with the MLS, but I think the Rowdies, the plan was that the owner wants the club to be one of the biggest franchises in American soccer. So obviously that means navigating your way to the MLS at some point, I would imagine.
Right.
So he loves football. The owner, he's pumping a lot of money and resources into the town, and you know he's good. He's good. It's an experience, and I'm enjoying my football again.
That's great. There've been several attempts over the decades, Joe, probably even before you were born, to try and make football, stick in America. Do you think this time it will?
I think so. I think personally, I think the problems before in the 70s when Pele and them boys went over there, Rodney Marsh played for Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Yes.
I think was the infrastructure wasn't right underneath. Kids love it out there. Like all boys and girls under 16s, it's the most played sport.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened now is they got, American soccer, football's got the infrastructure's getting better, proving it, and these kids that are playing it at a young age are now seeing it as a career.
Yeah.
And you got the lad at Borussia Dortmund who's gone into Europe, the young boy, the winger, the American guy who they think could end up possibly being one of the best players in the world. So
wow.
I think that's the difference now. Like they're the
homegrown
players. They're growing it slowly. Yeah.
And they're trying. I mean, there have been a couple of sort of expansion teams, haven't there? Because I mean, that was how Manchester City's New York City started. Frank Lampard went there and everything else. What's happening with David Beckham's team down in Florida? Because he's meant to be starting that up in Miami, isn't he? Still?
Yeah, I mean that's on the other coast. That's Miami. I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure it'll be successful. Anything Beck seems to touch seems to work. So I mean, these things take time, don't they? Like I said, he's very political. There's you can literally start a team in a town, and the crowd will come and watch you, like 20,000 or things like that. From nothing. And the thought of that, because our football is so historical and it goes back, hundreds of years. Yeah. Over there, it's all new, so they'll start a new team, and then all of a sudden they get in 20,000 people. The whole town follows them. So
it's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Absolutely amazing. Now, Joe, you're back in England. Your glory years, well, you've had lots of glory years, but your glory years at Chelsea, 3 Premier League titles, 3 FA Cups, European glory. I was with you in Moscow when you were in the Champions League final. What do you make of the team that you see today with the success that they're now building on?
I think it's been excellent. I think obviously Antonio's come in. The benefit of not having European football. Obviously, we all want European football. He's able to really get his philosophy across in the way they want to play. And you've seen them improve steadily from the start of the season. And that result of the weekend was great. That was a real marker down in the title race. I think that's the first proper big game we've had this season. Like the first one we think, that's a marker down. And I think Chelsea. You've got to look at Chelsea being the favourites now. Oh,
it was a class performance, wasn't it? There were 2 gigantic teams there, and the winner of that one was going to really, really state a case to be Premier League favourites, weren't they? Yeah,
I think it was I think Chelsea, if they would have got a point there, it would have been a great result. Man City really needed to win the game. I'm sure, Pep, like I said, Pep's revolution might take a little bit of time because of the European football, there ain't enough time to work on the training pitch and get your messages across.
Sure.
And drill that messages into a team. So, but with Conte, he's had that time and he's doing a great job. And the team looks like it's got personality and character again, which is important.
Yeah, indeed.
And Liverpool look a bit like that too, don't they, Joe? I mean, they've got Jurgen Klopp now, who's a world of difference to when you were there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a breath of fresh air. He's I used to enjoy watching his Borussia Dortmund teams play. He was a bit of a revolutionary in the way that he played. And Liverpool look a threat. I think they'll go close as well. I'm pretty sure. I mean, a disappointing result for them at the weekend. But I think with the way you play when you play with a high press, everyone keeps talking about Liverpool's defenders not being good, but when you're playing with a high press, you're defending on the halfway line. It's tougher than defending on your 8-yard box. It is. So I feel for them. The back four under that a little bit, but they've all got to buy into that system
for Klopp in order to make it work.
Sure. Now, Joe, I need to ask you about Jose Mourinho. You played under him when he was at his peak.
Yeah.
You had quite a sparky relationship with him. He loved you and adored you one moment. Next minute he was pulling you off after 20 minutes at Fulham.
Yeah.
What do you make now of what the position Jose's in? Has he lost his magic?
No, I don't think so. I think because of he's so successful over the last 20 years, and it has been consistent. Nobody can doubt that. I think the ball hasn't started rolling at Man United yet. But which is a new experience for him, because every club he's been at, he's hit the ground running, ain't he? So I think he'll get time there. I think he'll turn it round. And I said I've been watching them. Obviously, with Jose I've been taking a keen eye on the team and the performances. And I do genuinely think they've been a little bit unlucky. I felt they could have won. They should have won games that they've drew. The league would look a little bit better for them. If that was the case.
Now, looking at Steven Gerrard's return to this country, having played in America for a year or so, he wasn't thought to have done particularly brilliantly at LA Galaxy, but he's coming back to be something on the coaching side. Do you see yourself doing that eventually, Joe?
Yeah, eventually. I want to. You get to this stage of 35 now. You keep your toes in as many different parts as you can, I suppose. But I think the pitch will always be calling for me, because it's what you know, and it's what I've done since I was a kid. So I'm learning a lot. I've been over Chelsea this week working with Jody with the under-18s, and that's been a real eye-opener. You know, a real professional operation they do over there. I'm looking to, I'd like to go back into all my old clubs and have a look. And, when you look at the club from a different angle, all the different things that go on behind the scenes, it is remarkable. And just try and pick up as much knowledge as I can from these young coaches.
Well, I always know you used to spend hours, didn't you, just watching European football at home, anything you could, Spanish, French and all that. What do you make of Gareth Southgate's elevation, Joe? Because you will have played against Gareth Southgate on many an occasion. Yeah,
I've played with Gareth as well for England.
Of course.
He's always struck you as one of them, they say sometimes players become managers you don't expect. I mean, Gareth, I think, you always knew he was going to become a manager. Right. And he's took an interesting route. He's gone through the youth team, the youth level with the under-21s, and he's gone around that way, I think. And initially I was a bit sort of, I didn't
skeptical.
I wouldn't say skeptical is the right word. It was like it come from you always think of England, you think of Ericsson, Capello, these experiences, but that hasn't worked. And then the more and more I think about it, and knowing Gareth as I do, as a real football man, I think it could be the right appointment, because these young boys have all worked with him. Yeah. They all respect him. They all trust him, and he knows the system inside out. And I feel that it could work. I'm ever the optimist with England, though.
Some people have said, Joe, that he's too nice to be England manager. Has he got a sort of dark side that you can tell us about?
Well, probably not.
I don't know him as a manager. He was a great guy as a player. He really, as it happens, he's one of the senior players when I was there. He was very kind to me, and he helped me out a lot. So I've only got good things to say about him. But the lads who really know him, have worked with him. They'll tell you that someone needs to be told they're not pulling their weight. Yeah. Gareth don't mess about. So. Right. I'm convinced he's the right man for it. The more time goes on, and I think about it, I think it's going to be a new dawn for English football.
That's great. Now, Joe, we're coming to the end of this interview. You suffered a family tragedy recently. I'm very, very sorry to hear about that. Your dad and George, who I knew very well indeed. But you told me when I was chatting to you the other night that Chelsea is a football club, and you referred to them as we earlier in this interview, were particularly good about the circumstances. Yeah,
I'd like to thank all the clubs, that I've played for that sent flowers and that, but Chelsea really went above and beyond really. Like before the Spurs game, Spire mentioned it to the crowd, and he got a round of applause. And like my dad, Mike, he'd probably known most of the crowd.
Indeed.
He was there for 7 years, so and they give him a round of applause, and that was some things are more important than football, and that was quite special for me and my family. And I'd like to thank everyone in the ground and at the club that day. That was brilliant. And also I'd like to thank all the people from the clubs I played for who sent messages and
well, that's very.
And all that. It was very, very comforting.
Yeah, I mean, truly, football was a family in that experience for you. Yeah, well, I knew your dad well, and I shared a drink or two with your dad at football matches, and I'm very sorry to have heard that, Joe. And
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but he was a great guy. I always enjoyed his company. Yeah. Joe, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us, Joe.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck. Have a good Christmas and good luck going back into the game in Florida.
Thanks very much. Merry Christmas, chaps.
Thanks very much indeed, Joe. Take care.
Joe Cole there talking to us right here on Talk Sport. Some interesting things he said about Gareth Southgate and, of course, about Jose as well. We'll discuss some of that coming up in the next hour. We'll also be meeting a man who's got a dog with him. And, of course, it's going to be Ask Porky as well. This is Talk Sport. Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes on Talk Sport. Coming up in this hour, we're going to look ahead to Bayern Munich against Atletico Madrid. Could possibly be one of the best games of the night. Carlo Ancelotti not doing brilliantly over at Bayern. We'll find out what the problem is. Kev Hatchard's going to help us with that. We're going to talk to Postman Pork as well, because he's got a mailbag bulging with all sorts of correspondence that we were supposed to do yesterday, but we didn't on account of having Rod Stewart on. We'll talk a bit about what Joe Cole had to say as well. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. Got a nice text here from Tommy, maybe a tweet actually. Joe Cole on TalkSport. Man was my hero. If he got to his full potential, Joe Cole would have been one of the best in the world.
Joe was one of the best in the world, and he scored a goal for England against Sweden in I think it was the 2006 World Cup. It's still rated as one of the best 3 or 4 goals in international competition ever. And anybody who turns around and says, Joe Cole didn't reach his potential. Joe Cole won 3 Premier League titles and 3 FA Cups.
Yeah.
He played in the Champions League final in Moscow, which was one of the closest that's ever been played, against Manchester United, the famous John Terry slip on the penalty
spot
shootout, and not many people have reached heights higher than that in domestic and European and international football. So I'd have a look at Joe's record again to realise what a huge contribution he made to the game.
Yeah, another text here from someone who says, Joe says Liverpool play with a high press and as a result they are virtually defending on the halfway line. Yeah. If I was playing or coaching against them, that's exactly what I would want them to do. Suggesting that I suppose other people would like to play against Liverpool because they could score goals against them.
Well, I mean...
Easier said than done, though.
Funny enough, Joe did cover, didn't he, the aspect of Liverpool's defence and say it's not quite as simple as saying that the defenders aren't as good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the make-up and the will with which they play. If they talked about the pressing game and how they do it. So he knows more about it than I do, so I'm prepared to accept what he said.
I got this in about 18 minutes ago from Mark the Taxi. He says, last chance, Mr. Parry, do you want your tablets taken home? I'm just about to drop somebody at Waterloo.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much indeed. But
he's obviously got your address.
I doubt it, but...
but since you put it out on the internet.
Well, that's true, yeah. But thank you very much indeed for the offer. Don't worry, we're in very good shape.
Paul says this, the plank doesn't need a shopping list as he only buys fish fingers and corned beef.
Well, I don't just eat fish and corned beef, but I see no shame in admitting that sometimes you do. But, I mean, that's largely irrelevant, isn't it, compared to the sort of issues we have been discussing this morning. I don't know why you always bring it back to fish fingers and corned beef.
Well, because you're always talking about how you love going into supermarkets. And here's another one, right? Yeah. From, where is it? From Robbie, who says, Porky once claimed he only shops in Waitrose about a year ago. He's never once mentioned the shop since.
Well,
hashtag snob.
No, it's not that at all. Sometimes go to Waitrose, but the great advantage of Asda, where I live, it's a hypermarket. It's down in the stockbroker belt territory.
You can buy your clothes there as well, then?
You could do if you wanted to.
Do you not buy your clothes there?
No. But a guy called George...
Sports Direct.
Who founded Next, the fashion chain, now has a range of clothes called George, which are sold in Asda exclusively.
They've had that for quite some time.
Yeah, what's his name? George what?
I don't know. I never buy them.
George... Anyway, the reason that he came to my attention last weekend...
George Kennedy.
No, it wasn't George Kennedy.
That was the earlier George.
No, he was the actor who sadly has died. The other George is very much alive. He's 75 and he got married for the 4th time last week, Well,
you seem to know an awful lot about
George Davis.
You seem to know an awful lot about him.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Why do you know so much about him? You must buy the clothes then.
No. Funny enough, when I was new Supremo at the Express, Sir Nicholas, who was our editor, Sir Nicholas Lloyd, brought George in, and we had some, commercial deal whereby, like, Next Close or something being sold through the Daily Express, like Saturday Magazine or something like that, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I met him a couple of times. Very impressive man.
Would you say he's a friend of yours? Perhaps we get him on tomorrow.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's not a lot in common that we have between...
Why not?
The world of football and retail.
Well, he may be a football fan, you don't know.
Retail gurus, But anyway, the reason I go to Asda is not because, George has a range of clothes there.
Is that right?
It's because for the hour that I'm inside the old hypermarket, these guys clean my car from top to bottom and they come out sparkling.
Right.
And,
that's the point of it,
befits the great vehicle it is.
So that's the point of it. They want you to spend a load of money in the shop while they're doing all that.
Of course they do.
But Wardy's asking a question. He's done it as an Ask Porky, but I think we'll have to do it now. How do you spend £186 on groceries for one? And actually, Paul has answered that question.
Yeah.
He's confusing groceries for booze.
No, I didn't buy any booze.
I
swear to you.
So how did you spend £186?
Well, I made a bit of a mistake on buying the meat because I thought I'd have a substantial piece of fillet.
Did you?
But they didn't have any.
Fillet what?
Fillet beef.
Fillet what?
Fillet beef.
Oh, what?
A
fillet of beef.
Fillet of beef, yeah. But for some unknown reason, they didn't have any. The guy behind the meat counter said, it's all over there. And I said, but this is the fresh meat counter. He said, yeah, but all the fillet I've had is wrapped up in cellophane and it's on that shelf
into
over
fillet
there.
Steaks.
Hey?
He's cut it into fillet
Something
steaks.
like that, yeah. Okay, I said, so what else have you got? And then, what was that? What's the next one down to fillet? It's...
Rump?
Rump, that's right, yeah, rump. I said, okay. I said, I'll have a piece of rump.
Well, did you have any idea what size you wanted?
Well, he said, what do you want? And I said, well... What's your
I can
rump?
imagine the guy saying, what do you want?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
So I said, well, give me... I don't know how much meat costs. So I said, can I have a piece of rump steak, please?
You'd never be any good as a politician. That's the sort of question you get asked. Like, how much is a pint of milk? How much is a kilo of rump?
If I was a politician, I'd bone up on all that, but I don't need to know.
There.
Yeah. So I said, about £25, please.
£25 in weight?
No, you idiot. You
wouldn't
be able to carry that around. Well, that's like 10 bags of sugar. I know how heavy that is. Or 12 bags of sugar. Imagine carrying 12 bags of sugar around. No, yeah. I said £25 cost. So he said, OK.
Right.
So then he gave it me, and I said, this is not one joint. I wanted one joint. It's two. He said, yeah, £25 is too much to put into one joint. I didn't have it, so I've had to give you two. So I said, OK, well, you could have given me one then, because I didn't realise it was so big. So I took all this home, and then I sort of cooked it. And now I've had to chop it all up and put it into separate sort of boxes and things, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because there's such a lot of it.
So where have you put it?
In the freezer.
What do you mean you've got sort of various cuts of beef?
Yes.
Without being able to cook just one joint?
Yes.
So how are you going to cook that?
No, I've cooked it all. I cooked it all when I got it home. I cooked it all. But then I've chopped it all up and put it into plastic boxes and put it in the freezer.
How bizarre.
Yeah, well, it's not bizarre.
It's not going to taste any good, is it?
Yeah, well, it tastes great.
Well, how are you going to reheat it then?
I'm going to put basil in it, by the way. That's why I bought all the basil.
Right.
Yeah.
How much basil did you buy?
4 cartons of.
Cartons?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't buy fresh basil?
No, I don't know. Fresh basil disintegrates and
So
withers.
When you say cartons, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, yeah, those sort of tubular, like, cartons
so 4 of those.
of basil. Yeah.
Well, it's a jar. It's not a carton.
No, it's made of plastic. It's not made of...
yeah, it's a jar.
No, jar's made of glass.
Well, jars can be made of many things.
Anyway, look, that's irrelevant. I thought it was very interesting what Joe Cole, who kind of came on and talked to us.
I'm interested that he thought Gareth Southgate was going to be a great manager.
He does. He was convinced, wasn't he? He said that he's come back to England. He's had a look at it at close hand, sort of, and he believes that the chemistry, that's what I gathered from what he was saying, the chemistry between Gareth Southgate and his players, particularly younger players, could be very good.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. We'll talk some more about that as well. We're going to talk about European football, though, because it is Champions League night tonight, of course. Bayern Munich taking on Atletico Madrid. Bayern not actually top of the Bundesliga at the moment, so we'll find out what's going wrong with Kev Hadchard coming next. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Of course, it's Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on, and we're also going to have a delve into the old mailbag with Postman Pork as well. All sorts of stuff going on. We're going to have a man with a dog coming in as well. Basel taking on Arsenal tonight, of course, live right here on Talk Sport. Right now, though, we're going to talk to Kev Hadchard because Bayern Munich take on Atletico Madrid in what could be the game of the night, actually.
Indeed.
Even though Bayern are second in the league there, and they're not really with any likelihood of winning it. But let's talk to Kev Hadchard because things are not going as you might expect for Carlo Ancelotti there. Kev, a very good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, guys. It's nice to talk to you, Mike, when it's not 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning or something like that.
It's nice to talk to you at any time, Kev. You know, I would never put that sort of condition on our conversation.
And once more the yawning.
That's the dawning, actually.
Oh, the dawning.
Woke up the yearning in me or something.
That's
anyway,
right, yeah.
That's enough of that rubbish. What about Bayern Munich and what's going wrong? Because Leipzig are top of the Bundesliga, unbelievably, and Bayern are not top of their group.
Yeah, it's been a strange old season for Bayern. They made a really, really good start. I was at their first game of the season first game of the Bundesliga season when they tore Werder Bremen apart, beat them 6-0. They won their first 8 games in all competitions with Ancelotti in charge. That was a record for Ancelotti. But since then, they've been a little bit plodding. They've been stuck in this 4-3-3 formation that Ancelotti has decided to use. There's a feeling that some of their build-up play has been very slow. Also, they've been leaking goals, which isn't like them. If you look at their time under Pep Guardiola, they were keeping clean sheet after clean sheet, which, of course, is not something he's experiencing at the Etihad at the moment. But they weren't leaking goals, and suddenly they are. And I think the fear factor is very important when you're taking on teams like Bayern, and I think a little bit of that has been eroded. So they were much better away to Mainz on Friday. They actually changed up the system and played a front four, had Robben and Ribéry, and Thomas Müller looked a lot better in behind Lewandowski. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. But Ancelotti's certainly not panicking, but they haven't been great in the last few weeks.
I mean, the thing is, Kev, could it ever happen where Bayern Munich could slip away in the way that we've seen other gigantic clubs just sort of become average, like AC Milan? Alan McAnally, who's a colleague of ours here at TalkSport, he played for Bayern. He said they were the biggest club in the world. That's how he rated them. But they are slipping away, aren't they?
They're slipping slightly, but I don't think anybody should be getting too carried away. The thing about Bayern is that they are meticulously run. I was thinking about their contract situations with some of their key players, and very, very quietly they've lined up a new deal for Robert Lewandowski. He's expected to sign that by the end of the year. And I was racking my brains recently trying to think of a single player they lost recently that they didn't want to lose, and it just doesn't happen. People point at the Toni Kroos example with him going to Real Madrid, but actually Bayern was simply not prepared to pay him the wages that he wanted, and they didn't really want to keep him that desperately, so that was a deal they were happy to do, especially to bring in Xabi Alonso in the other direction. So they're so well run. They have the financial resources. They have a very good coach. It's nice for Bundesliga fans like myself to actually see them be challenged at the top of the table by Leipzig, who are doing a wonderful job. And make no mistake, guys, they're the real deal. They're not just pretenders.
They've sort of come. They've sort of come from nowhere, though, haven't they? I mean, you may say that you saw it coming, but I mean, for those of us who are not absolutely watching the Bundesliga every minute of the day, you know, I'm surprised to see Leipzig at the top of the league.
Oh, of course, and so am I. I didn't think they'd have any relegation problems, but I didn't think they'd be anywhere near challenging at the very top of the table. But what they've got is a young, hungry squad. They've got one of the youngest squads in the Bundesliga, if not the youngest. They've got a wonderful coach in Ralf Hasenhüttl, who's been very strongly linked with a move to Arsenal in the last few days. He's an organiser, but he's also somebody that allows his attacking players to play with freedom, and they're all on form. Now, that may not last. There may be a situation where a few of those young guys do drop at the same time, and that's where Hasenhüttl is going to have to marshal his resources accordingly. Right. But in terms of them qualifying for the Champions League, I can absolutely see that happening.
Because one of the things that Bayern were famous for, I suppose you might say, when Jurgen Klopp was there for Borussia Dortmund, was they would poach sort of players from the other teams that were, you know, still challenging them and thereby sort of nurturing them as well. But what they didn't do, or did they miss a trick by not getting their hands on Christian Pulisic, this young American guy? We were just talking to Joe Cole, who thought that, you know, this kid could be one of the best players in the world.
Oh, Pulisic is incredible, and the temptation to call him Pulisic is immense as a commentator. But we have been told that he calls himself Pulisic, and that's the way we have to go. Okay. But he is
not related to Tony Pulisic, is he?
Yeah, Tony, well, yeah, they're distant cousins, I think, apparently. He's so talented. I mean, he's 18, he's not long turned 18, but he plays like somebody who could be 38. He's got so much maturity, seems to be taking the whole thing in his stride. He's skillful, he's quite old-fashioned in many ways. He's an old-school winger who can go inside or outside his full-back, gets good crosses in, has an eye for goal as well. And I'm not surprised that some of the big boys are looking at him. Dortmund are talking to him about a new deal. I wouldn't be surprised if he does sign one, because he says he's in no massive rush to leave, despite the fact he keeps getting linked with a move to Liverpool. But Bayern are looking still at the top young talents in the league. There's a guy called Julian Brandt for Bayer Leverkusen, who for me is one of the brightest young stars, not just in Germany but in Europe, and they've been looking at him for the past couple of years. So they still do that. They still do look at the top domestic talents that they can snaffle from other clubs, but it is good to see other clubs putting their hands up and giving them a fight.
OK, so, Kev, what's the view from Bavaria across the rest of Europe now? Spain,
Bavaria?
Yeah. I suppose that Spain is still a mountain to climb, and they must sort of think that maybe the English threat has been weakened by the absence of giants like Manchester United and Chelsea.
I think one thing with certainly the German view of the English clubs at the moment is that they are still astonished by the money being thrown at players. You know, you've had a number of examples recently of English clubs coming and buying Bundesliga players for huge sums. Heung-min Son, for example, when he made the move from Bayer Leverkusen to Spurs, Leverkusen couldn't believe the amount of money they were given. Augsburg sold Abdul Rahman Baba to Chelsea for a fee that was more than their entire budget for a year. So I still think there's a kind of amazement at that. But yes, I think deep down the Germans look across to Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, especially Bayern, because they're the clubs that have been knocking them out in the last few seasons.
Yeah. And we got live TalkSport 2 commentary of Bayern against Atletico Madrid tonight, Kev. I mean, a lot's being said about Arsenal coming in second place to PSG when they perhaps should have been a little bit more careful and come in first. But coming second this year might not be so bad for Arsenal, particularly if teams like Bayern are coming second.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that Arsene Wenger made reference to that and said that in seasons gone by he's felt guilty when they've not got top spot and they've ended up getting thumped by somebody pretty decent in the last 16. But it is wide open this time, and you have got some really tasty groups. You've got Borussia Dortmund battling away with Real Madrid at the top of that group. You've got Bayern against Atleti, and Atleti are going to finish top in that group. So, yeah, it is going to be a really interesting last 16, I think, and I think there's going to be some cracking ties that we would usually see in, say, quarterfinals and semi-finals that will actually be in the last 16. As for this Bayern Atletico game, Atleti have won all 5 of their group games so far. They'd love to make it 6, but domestically they are struggling at the moment. Bayern are looking at it, wanting to keep their home run going. They've won the last 14 home games in the Champions League, which is a record. They would love to keep that going. I don't think they'll play the strongest team. I don't think either team will, but I still think there'll be enough quality there to make it an interesting game.
Sure, great stuff, Kev. Thank you very much indeed. As
Thanks,
we said,
Kev.
Live on TalkSport 2 tonight, Bayern Munich against Atletico, full match commentary. We've got Arsenal taking on Basel over in Switzerland, live right here on TalkSport. Coming up, it's going to be time for Postman Pork.
Postman Pork, I eat my chips with just a fork, 'cause then I can still talk.
Possibly the worst jingle ever made in the history of radio.
I didn't even know that was going to be used. That was me limbering up.
That was you limbering up.
That was me limbering up. And
I assume that the producers took the view that if that was you limbering up, it could only get worse.
No,
I might as well just go with the first take.
I rewrote I was going to rewrite a proper version, and I said no, we've got no more airtime. That's it.
Well, you see, studio time's very expensive.
I know it is.
You can't waste it.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is a new feature that we've been doing from a couple of weeks ago. We started it, and basically it's where people write in to you.
Yes.
Also, both of us sometimes. And you open it live on air.
I'm just opening
and
it
read
now.
it, hopefully without issuing any swear words and causing us to have to dump anything.
No, it's a family show, man.
And off we go. Where's the first piece of correspondence from?
Well, here's the
Porky?
first one. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Dear Porky, this comes from Len in Liverpool. But that's at the end. I haven't looked at the start yet.
Okay.
Right. No, it says here, after listening to your broadcast recently, I became quite concerned about the possibility of an asteroid colliding with the Earth. Right, it's okay.
Well, I can't remember that show.
Len says, I understand that now NASA and 2 fullbacks from Swansea are figuring out a way to defend our planet. This must be something to do with Bob, I think. One method would be to deflect
Len been on the source?
I think he must have been. To deflect it, by greasing the impact side with waste oil from our chip shops. I think Len's having a joke here. If it were to hit the frozen north, Eskimos would have steel domes fitted to the top of their igloos. Wildlife would also have to be... I'm sorry, Glenn, we can't read any more of this because it's drivel. But anyway, Glenn signs off by saying, great show, fellas.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very
nice
much
of him
indeed,
to take the time to write about his concerns, given the nature of his concerns.
Indeed.
What's up next?
Well, I've got a postcard from Loch Ney. Now, have you ever been to Loch Ney?
I don't know where Loch Ney is.
Loch Ney's in Northern Ireland.
Oh, is it?
It's the biggest freshwater lake in the United Kingdom.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think
Are you
so.
sure?
Yeah. No, I think so, yeah.
You sure it's bigger than the ones in Scotland?
I think it is. It's a big place.
How do you
I've been there. You spell it Neagh. And it's like near Lurgan and Coal Island, where Dennis Taylor comes from.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
And County Derry.
Apparently it's got a monster.
I'm not sure if it has or not.
It's the largest lake by area in the British Isles.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Supplies 40% of Northern Ireland's water.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it says here. It doesn't say anything actually. It says, "Do you drink city coffee, Porky?"
Yeah.
And is everything you say a rainbow of lies?
Yeah. Does it have a sort of a greeting on the front, like "Welcome to Loch Ney" or something?
It just says Loch Ney, and it says what you've just said, the largest lake in Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and it comes from. Let me see. Some guy called. I think his name is Bert.
Bert.
I think it's Bert.
Okay.
The coracle cows of Loch Ney.
Right.
Well,
is that it then?
It's
not much of a message, is
no,
it?
it's not really. I think it's. It says also, you two are a secret pair. What are you up to?
What?
Christmas skiing. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, that one.
No.
But anyway, that's.
Well, it says quite a lot, though, for a postcard.
Yeah,
it said it didn't have anything written on it.
No, well, okay.
What's
right.
next?
Okay, next up. Here we go. Of
Nearly
course,
over
this,
thank God.
this time of year.
We haven't had many Christmas cards.
Well, this is what I'm saying. You
Postman
start
Talks,
getting Christmas cards. So if I open this one here, it's a very nice Christmas card on the front. See?
Okay.
You want to see that?
Oh, that's nice. Is that addressed to both of us? You've now just ripped the envelope in
half.
half.
It's addressed to me.
Are you sure?
Well, sorry, I open it and it says to Mike Porky Parry and Mike Graham.
So it's to both of us then?
It's to both of us, I suppose, yeah. So anyway...
I suppose.
Yes. So it says, with all best wishes for Christmas and the New Year, thank you very much indeed. And it says, what an amazing radio show you have. It keeps me going whilst I drive my coach at night.
Excellent.
And it says, Happy Christmas and New Year from Nottingham Forest reporter Zeb. Well, Zeb, thank you very much
that's
indeed.
Very nice,
yeah, that's very nice of you indeed. And long may it remain. Now then, I've got one here, right? This is a bit more special, and I've opened it already. It's a package, so I thought I'd better have it. It might take some time to open.
Yeah. Okay.
Still got some wrapping paper. And inside I find... What do I find?
What do you find?
I'm going to show it to you. What is this?
Oh, my God, it's a copy of Rooney Tunes.
It's a copy of my best-selling book, Rooney Tunes, right?
Which is also now available for a penny in Amazon.
Well, that's...
100 copies for £1.
That's as may be. Anyway, so if we open this and I get to the...
Has he sent it back because he's dissatisfied with it?
Well, to start off with, it's not a he, it's a she.
Oh, it's a she, is
a lady called Angela, or Ange. Loads of love from a huge fan, Ange. Ange, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
And she says, Dear Mr. Parry, Mr. Graham, I don't know if you recall my message about a week ago telling you about how my friend James and I missed the opportunity to catch up with you after your fantastic show at the O2 in Liverpool.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one we were telling Rod about yesterday.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And we said we play at the O2. He said it's not quite the same as my O2.
Well, that's what I said to you.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Due to us being completely bladderated. Now, this is what I like to hear.
Yeah.
They
were too bladderated to hang around and get a signed copy of the book?
Apparently so, yeah. But, I mean, we like people to get in the spirit of things at our shows.
Yes.
The next one, of course, is Week on Saturday in Glasgow.
It is.
So it says, anyway, we had planned to get you both to sign our copies of Rooney Tunes, which, of course, we failed to achieve. As per your response, I've enclosed my copy of Rooney Tunes, which I'd be so grateful if you could write a quick message inside it to James and for both of you to sign it before returning in the prepaid packaging.
That's very nice.
It would mean so much to me and James if the message could be personal and included the date and location of where we saw you to make that a little bit more special. Well,
how personal does she mean?
Well, I think just, best wishes and all that kind of stuff.
All that kind of stuff.
She goes on to say... I just want to start by saying I think you are both awesome. You got awesome. I love listening to your podcasts. You crack me up. And then
I don't think you should read out too much of it if it's a bit too praiseworthy, because that starts to sound a bit self-aggrandising.
I was about to say, I've only read that first line out. There are another couple of paragraphs, all saying that basically we're brilliant.
Well, you don't have to paraphrase that either.
No. And
it's better if you leave that bit out.
I never have any objections to receiving that. And then something else here. Oh, I see. She has sent the e-ticket that she received
for the O2 Academy?
For the O2 Academy.
Oh,
in
right.
fact, 2 e-tickets.
Signed as well?
And we've been asked to sign those as well.
Right.
And it says, Academy Events presents the 2 mics plus special guests. Who are they?
Yeah, there weren't any special guests.
Yes,
but that was a bit similar to when we showed up and the guy said he came into the dressing room and we were ready to open the doors at 7 o'clock, go on stage at 7:30. And that starts nailing this thing up on the wall.
Quarter to 10.
Show starts at 8:45.
Quarter to 9.
And we went, hang on a second. Because I think a lot of the time it's like Katie Tunstall was playing there the night before we were.
That's right, yeah.
And I think they put a lot of musical acts on, and they always have a support group.
Absolutely,
which we don't have. You're not listening to me, are you?
I am listening.
No, I can tell when you're not listening.
Listening.
I know when you're not listening.
Katie Tunstall support groups and all that. I heard all that.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Katie Tunstall support groups. What, for people who like Katie Tunstall?
No, Katie Tunstall and support groups you were talking about, right? You said Katie Tunstall the night before.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so
we'll finish now.
We'll be signing off. No, there's one more here.
One more?
Well, there's 200 here, but my producer says we've only got time to open one more, so I'm going to open this very quickly. You can hear me ripping this envelope open.
There's another one from Len in Liverpool.
It's not from Len in Liverpool. This is... I've just opened it. It says on the outside, Mr. Mike Graham, Mr. Mike Parry, Talksport Radio. And when I open it, it said, please pass this on to Danny Kelly. so
Well, pass it on to Danny Kelly then.
And it says...
why wouldn't he just put Danny Kelly's name on it?
I don't know. It says, this is a repeatedly revised version of the Beatles industry.
Uh-huh.
Danny knows more about it than you do.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
Well, you pass it on to Danny Kelly then.
Pass it on to Danny Kelly.
Yeah. That was Postman Pork.
It certainly was.
This is TalkSport.
Yeah.
This is TalkSport. We are the 2 mics. The Postman Pork feature seems to have gone down very well.
Yes.
A couple of people have asked to hear the rest of Len's letter.
Yes.
So maybe we'll do that next time.
Well, you know, it's confidential. Len writes to us, and then we dissipate the amount of the content we can.
I'm also just about to sign the book
Yes.
that was requested by Ange and
Yes.
for James. Right?
Yes.
But I see that you've written a falsehood in there.
What?
It says signed at the O2 Academy, Liverpool, Friday, November, and then no date. Porky.
Yeah. That was the request, November the 4th.
Yeah, but it doesn't say November the 4th.
No, it will, don't worry.
But it wasn't signed at the O2 Academy.
No, but they've asked for, because they wanted it signed that night, do you understand what I'm saying?
I see.
That they got too bladderated.
Oh,
They
right.
would like it to be a memory of that memorable night.
Oh, I see.
Okay?
But it wasn't signed then, though. And you've just done it on live radio, so everyone will know it wasn't
No,
signed.
not at all. Not at all. They were there that night. They had the book there
Yes.
with them. The fact that we weren't able to commit pen to book
Yes.
was just a technical
I see. Okay.
detail. You
All
see
right.
what I mean?
Okay.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
All
That
right.
book was in Liverpool.
Yeah.
That book was with the owners of the book who are going to, repossess it.
Right.
So I don't think there's anything wrong there at all.
No, of course you don't, because your relationship with the truth is very, very tenuous indeed. Let's talk to Paddy Power.
Indeed.
Paddy, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yes.
Now,
It's quite enjoying that soliloquy there.
yeah.
Yes,
it
thank
wasn't
you.
technically a soliloquy because there's two of us talking.
It's like Mike Graham, who's never told a lie in his life except to everybody he's ever met.
See how upset he gets when I accuse him of doing something he shouldn't have. Anyway, let's talk about the Champions League tonight, because there's a lot of interest in these games, probably from the betting perspective. But, I mean, in terms of actual results, there's not an awful lot riding on many of them, is there?
Yeah, it's a bit of one of them. Like, we've been trying to sell it, saying, it's very exciting tonight to see whether Arsenal can, who aren't even in control of finishing top of the group, can they still qualify. Of course they're going to qualify. They're going to probably finish second unless the PSG have to get beat, don't they? And Arsenal obviously have to win. They're away in Basel, and they're 23-20. And they might be a bit of value. They're going to rest a player or two probably, but they might be a little bit of value because they have a great record away, and they have a great. I think they've never lost in a group game since 2005 or 2006 or something. Isn't that right? So there's some stat I read somewhere, which I possibly dreamt, but I think that's true. And the other one is obviously Man City and Celtic. And I mean, the only reason this is glamorous is it's Scotland versus England, isn't it? That's the reason to see. So if Celtic can pull off a massive scalp here,
it'll be one of their famous European nights.
Well, it would, wouldn't it? But
will,
also, you might expect Pep Guardiola to rest a few of his players because, the game doesn't mean a lot to him, does it?
Yeah, you would have thought so. And I think they could do it probably after getting beat at the weekend. Maybe they need to pull their get the gander up again. So for psychologically, it'd be bad for them to lose, but that way rather than important for them to win. So I think, to be honest with you tonight, I think Arsenal will win, and I think City will probably win handy in the end.
Maybe. Of course, this is a massive proposition here with Celtic, Paddy, because overnight Brendan Rodgers was telling us that in terms of fan base, in terms of history and historical heritage and culture, Celtic are one of the biggest teams in the world. So presumably, the interest the interest from the fans will represent that in your business.
Yeah, of course it is. And around Ireland, I mean, you see it, obviously, the League of Ireland wouldn't have half as big a following now as the Premier League around it, but Celtic's actually the one jersey you see more than any other jersey of people just walking around the streets and that. So Celtic followed by United, followed by Liverpool probably is the way the Irish fans would go. So there's a huge contingent travel over to Celtic games all the time, so I think it'll be good for your Manchester tonight. So they will. The one good thing is this will be a bit of a dead rubber for Man City, for home fans probably. But I think they got a good travelling fan base going over to have a look tonight.
Sure, absolutely right.
And there's plenty going on with this game between Bayern Munich and Atletico Madrid, which we've got live TalkSport 2 commentary of. I mean, that might be the game of the night, mightn't it?
Without a doubt it is. And Bayern Munich are very short, the 4-7. I love backing Atletico when they're outsiders in games because I just think they're still underrated. So even after years of knocking on the door in Spain, I still think we underrate them all the time. But they're 5-1. I just think they might be a bit of value. I know Bayern are going to be hard to beat at home, and they're one of the favourites to win the Champions League. But I just think Atletico can always pull off these one-off wonders, and I think 5-1 is a decent price.
Sure. And I mean, just going back to Arsenal for a minute, because they're probably going to finish second on the basis that PSG are unlikely to not beat Ludo
collapse.
I mean, have you got any price on them actually getting past the first knockout round? Because the problem for Arsenal, of course, if they come second, they get knocked out.
Yes.
Well, I guess if they come second, the reality is they're going to be probably at best they could be tiny, ever so slight favourites, depends who they draw. But I think they're going to be probably outsiders in their tie, which means they're probably going to be about 4-5 or 8-11 to be gone in the next round. I would have thought. Yeah, right. It'd be a pretty short price for them. Yeah,
sure. Benfica Napoli's quite an important game, isn't it?
Benfica Napoli, is it? Yeah, I don't know if Rashers really, is it? It's a toss of a coin game anyway on paper.
Yeah.
There's nothing between them. I mean, Benfica 8-5, Napoli are 17-10. That's about the same price. Right. And the draw is 23-10 there. So I know Benfica had a good result last time out, I think, but yeah. So I think Benfica at home, maybe the home advantage is sway it for them.
Right. We were talking to some Swansea fans a bit earlier on in the show, and Bobcat Bob Bradley is looking a little bit shaky in his position.
Fragile.
Yeah, fragile. Taking on Sunderland at the weekend. Is he still odds on as the most likely manager to get the boot before Christmas?
Yeah, he'd be pretty short price favourite, and is it a bit weird? Is it kind of it's not racist, where it's a bit racist. Just everybody assumes that because he's American, he doesn't know as much about football as far as.
Well, it's not that they assume that. It's just he's only had one win, and the way he describes some of the things that everybody talks about in a different way.
We did a good play.
Yeah, you get the sense that he's talking a different language.
Yeah, well, maybe, but if they are under pressure at the wrong end. Yeah, it's I guess the one person it's good news for is Pardew. Because now he's no longer the one that everybody's talking about getting the bullet, although that could still happen as well. So between the two of them would take the market for next manager to get the sack anyway. Yeah, so with Bradley and Pardew, about probably a 4-6 Bradley, about a 5-4 Pardew thereabouts.
Yeah, and have Chelsea now soared up to the top, Paddy, in terms of who's going to win the Premier League? Because it was such a stunning performance that you don't take it on a one-off performance. You say that could become a trend, the way Chelsea were playing.
Yeah, without a doubt, and they are. They've just taken over as favourites. Going to find here. They've taken over as favourites. They're 5-4 now to win the league, and City are out 3-1. Yeah. It's kind of a flip flop about what it was. Liverpool, obviously, they stumbled pretty badly the last few minutes of the weekend. They're 9-2 now, and Arsenal 13-2. So, part of me thinks that Chelsea are more catchable than if City had kicked on at the top of the table. Then so I think the other teams will kind of maybe take a little bit from that.
I think you're probably right.
Excellent stuff, Paddy. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paddy.
Paddy Power there, giving us all the odds on the Champions League football tonight, and also on Chelsea and possibly Bobcat Bob. I mean, what's your sense about Bobcat Bob?
I think it's inevitable. I think inevitably it's going to happen. The thing is, I don't really, we've known Paddy for years, but it's a bit sad when you have to start talking about the sack race rather than who's going to win the Premier League and all that kind of stuff.
But I mean, there's a market for it, and people do bet on it.
I totally agree. That is life, I'm afraid, and that's the way it goes. I mean, it's a bit like in the old days, isn't it? Sitting there watching people having their heads chopped off in the French Revolution, the guillotine.
Well, I mean, when you put it in that context, I guess it's not quite as bad as that. But the other thing is people always feel terribly sorry for football managers getting fired.
Yeah.
And there's not really any reason to, because they always walk away with a large bucket load of money.
Well, yes, except I don't think in Bob Bobcat's case, or Bobcat Bob's case...
Bobcat.
Yeah, that's right, Bobcat. I don't think that will be the case, because I think part of the reason he came in was the sort of the bonding with the culture of the club because of the American investment in the club.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I don't think he went there on a really hard contract that,
Yeah, but he'll be making reasonable money, won't he?
Well, of course he'll be making reasonable money, but I mean, he's probably, I would say, the lowest paid manager in the Premier League. I mean, David Moyes, has had a hell of a struggle so far, but is now turning it round, as we all knew he would, because he's a very good manager. And I reckon he'd be paid about double of what Bobcat Bob's paid, because David Moyes had a worth to the Premier League when he came in, from his track record and from the...
And he got about, $7 million from Manchester United, I think, didn't he, for walking away?
I don't know what he got when it was all over, but I mean, he had a very good contract.
Well, he had a long contract,
didn't he? 6-year contract, and there will have been some sort of negotiation in that. But what I'm saying is that, David Moyes was a very established Premier League manager. Bobcat Bob was an American manager coming to the Premier League for the first time. He didn't have a hell of a great bargaining chip to play.
Well, I mean, so what you're saying is he might be the least well-paid manager in the league.
Yes, that's right.
Which is possible. Yeah. But, I mean, it's still probably somewhere approaching not far from £1 million a year, isn't it?
I think it'll be about half that, I would think. I would think so, yeah.
Okay.
And then, as you quite rightly say, well, if he had a 2-year contract, he still gets $500,000, 3-year contract, he gets $1 million or whatever. Yeah. And you shouldn't feel sorry for them. But there's more things in life than just getting paid. Your professional pride can be knocked.
I never thought I'd hear you say that.
No,
I thought it was all about money for you.
Well, I think money is, generally speaking, an illustration of your worth in terms of how good you are at your job.
You see, it's interesting you say that, because I heard a conversation similar to this earlier on TalkSport this morning, where footballers nowadays, when they were talking about how do you motivate England footballers, that actually they see how much they get paid as a mark of how good they are, as opposed to, what trophies they've won.
Without a shadow of a doubt, some people like Lionel Messi or Ronaldo...
No, I'm talking about people like Phil Jagielka.
Yes, OK, yeah, Phil Jagielka. But, I mean, I'm talking about, at certain clubs, the amount of money you're paid each week has become largely irrelevant, as long as you're paid more than everybody else. Yeah. To just indicate and signify you are the most important person at that club. So that yes, it's material reward, and you get lavished with hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, but it's also a status issue of who is numero one.
But that can be a problem. We may talk some more about that coming up in the next hour. I've got a few tweets to read out as well. This is TalkSport. Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the two Mikes on TalkSport. Coming up in this hour, it is time for Ask a Porky. So if you need a question sorted out, if you need a dilemma sorted as well, now's the time to do it. All you've got to do is send us a tweet at the two Mikes, hashtag it Ask Porky, or look for us, of course, on the Facebook page as well, and you will get it answered live on air. John Gurlis is going to join us as well from the Dogs Trust. I think he's bringing a little Chihuahua in with him as well, by the way.
A Chihuahua?
A Chihuahua for you to cradle, which will be fun. And lots more. Jim Proudfoot joining us as well ahead of Basel Arsenal, which is live TalkSport commentary tonight. You're listening to the two Mikes of me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on TalkSport. Here's one from Neil, who says, I was going to tweet in about Porky's steak story, but I've lost the will to live listening to him. Yeah. Staggering levels of cobleros, I think is the best word to use.
Why is that? Why would anyone lose the will to live?
I think it was just very long and complicated for him. Kai says this.
Sound long and complicated to me.
Rooney Tunes has 10 one-star reviews on Amazon from 13 reviewers. I can't say I'll be buying it anytime soon, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
maybe you should update it. Maybe you should, because people do that. They take, do an extra chapter. Or do like a paperback or something.
Exactly.
Was it ever issued in paperback?
Normally, it wasn't issued in paperback. Normally, when it goes to a paperback, you put another 2 chapters on the front.
Say, you missed the trick there, so why don't you do it?
Well, no, not really. I just didn't have time. I had other things to do in those days. You know what I mean? Right. Busy lives and all that kind of stuff. Can't write a book every week, you know.
No, it's very true. Nick says this, Postman Porky is superb. Keep it coming, please.
Thank you. I do my best, to try and meet the demand that is always here, you know what I mean?
Well, I hope you haven't ruined, worn yourself out with that, because our Porky's coming up later on.
Yes, indeed.
As well.
Indeed. Listen, you have to understand that most of what we do is in response to how the audience perceive it.
Yes.
And how they want it, and that my mission in life.
Yes.
Okay. Just so that you know that.
All right. Well, we got a lot of really good ask porkies. So we'll get to those a little bit later on.
Okay. Good. Now I wanted to tell you about the Queen's speech.
Yes.
Do you ever watch the Queen's speech?
I always watch the Queen's speech. I try to always watch the Queen's speech.
Yes.
Anyway. Yeah. Even when I was in America, I used to watch it.
Okay.
Although sometimes I think I had to listen to it because it was put out on the BBC World Service.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
and you'd have to remember to get up early enough in the morning.
I
5 hours behind. Sorry, I haven't finished the sentence.
Oh, sorry.
You carry on. Yeah,
No,
carry on.
Go on.
No. Well, I'm finished now. You've interrupted me in the middle of it. Just like you did with Tim Vine the other day. Interrupted his punchline.
I thought most people could anticipate what you're going to say, to be honest, because it's rather...
Shall I just leave then?
It's rather routine.
Shall I just leave?
No, what I was going to say was, I've seen a report on the Queen's speech. She's been doing it for over 50 years.
Yes.
I think she first did it in about 1953.
Do you remember that year it was leaked? And it was supposed to be a big scandal.
No, what happened was, that was my great friend, who was the ITV royal correspondent.
Yeah. Was it Colin somebody?
No. It was... He became... a very senior press officer to Mohammed Al Fayed.
Oh, yeah.
And to Fulham Football Club.
Oh, yes.
I'm trying to remember his name.
Yes, I know the guy you mean, Peter somebody, right?
No, it wasn't Peter, no.
You sure?
No, he was a very, very debonair, cultured, refined, aristocratic man who was also an ITV journalist. And the story goes that after the Queen's speech was done, because it's always pre-recorded, he went off then to join the royal correspondents for a lunch, Christmas lunch.
Yes.
And unfortunately, during the course of that lunch, things leaked out. And of course, he wasn't the only one there, because it's done, I think, both on ITV and BBC, isn't it?
Yes,
In those days, we had the two main terrestrial channels.
Yes.
And
on Channel 4, they do the alternative Queen's speech, don't they, where they have somebody else doing it.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I've never seen that.
You didn't know that?
No. And anyway, stories started appearing in the papers. Now, I have to say, I know it's dog eat dog and it's a cutthroat business, journalism and all that, but when you stitch up your mate who's a royal correspondent, but he just happens to be in the electronic TV business, and you're in the newspaper print business, and you go around, supplying information to your paper and publishing stories about what the Queen's going to say, you must have known that you were jeopardising the role of your colleague there, who was the royal correspondent.
Well, I suppose so, but I mean, in that sense, you would have done the same thing, wouldn't you?
No, I don't think I would have done that.
You would have protected somebody who works with you rather than stamping all over them for the purposes of furthering your career.
Yeah. No,
I don't believe a word of it.
No, I think I would. I mean, once you come into people...
All right, well, when has that ever happened? When have you ever decided not to do something in order not to stamp all over somebody else who you were working with? I don't think you'll be able to think of an instance.
I don't think I ever have, but then I've never been put in the difficult dilemma of thinking, if I publish this guy will lose his job or anything like that. I don't think I'd have gone that far. I mean, remember I said to you, we had the Daily Express diarist in here, the very affable... John McEntee,
yes.
very affable Irishman. And he told us all about, the few funny stories about his book and all that. But then, when I read another review of the book about a week or two later... He said that after getting a fantastic talk with the widow of Tommy Cooper, who he managed to charm with a bunch of flowers on the doorstep, invited him in, sat down to all that, he went back to his office and then told his features editor she didn't want to talk to me because he felt that he couldn't actually put into print the emotional things that she told him.
Yes.
Well, I thought that was dreadful. I mean, I have to say...
Well, if you'd been his boss, you would have upbraided him.
If I ever found out that he'd been told so much stuff and then not put it down in writing as a story, he'd have been out the door.
Very possibly so.
I'm sorry to have to say that, because John's a very nice guy.
It's also a bit similar, is it not, to the trust that has to be given to Sunday newspaper reporters in the football business, because they get sit-downs with managers on a Friday, and generally speaking, they have to hold on to whatever it is they've got until the Sunday.
Yeah, but I mean, as they're employed by Sunday papers, they're unlikely to leak that to a Saturday paper, aren't they?
You say that, except there was a time when the Express was a 7-day-a-week operation, which used to make things very complicated, because depending on who was in charge of which paper, certain pressures were brought to bear.
Yes, I can understand that.
On people who were holding stories for the Sunday paper.
I can understand
because
that.
the people who were running the Saturday paper didn't have anything, they wanted something.
I can understand that, and it's jumping the gun. There was one occasion, right, when I worked for a certain newspaper, and they heard that in a sister newspaper in the same group, in the Colour magazine coming out on Sunday, there was an interview with Holly, what's his name, the lead singer of Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Holly Johnson.
Holly Johnson.
And that this interview was going to reveal that Holly Johnson had contracted HIV.
Right.
So that was just a rumour. So, of course, we did the usual thing. we sent an undercover reporter in as a van driver to the factory.
Yeah, because that was printed early, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was printed early. It's usually printed on about a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And so we hired a van, obviously. And this was a paper that belonged to the same organisation as the one that we worked for, you know what I mean? And we sent a van in there, and, the van driver jumped out and said, I've got a consignment of magazines for Watford or something like that. Oh, yeah, all right, mate, over there, you know. And picked a bundle up and just threw him in the back of the van and drove off.
Right. Which would otherwise be known as theft, wouldn't it?
Acquisition.
Yes.
Acquisition, I think, is a better word.
You might be able to get around it on the grounds that the same company owned all of it.
Well, that's right, absolutely. Anyway, what happened then was that the tabloid newspaper published the story over 3 pages on 1, 2 and 3 on Saturday.
Right.
You know, with this great... Because in those days, you've got to remember that the revelation that somebody had caught HIV was a massive story. Yeah. I mean, it was still a...
It was known as a spoiler, wasn't it?
It was known as a spoiler, and I'm afraid it was one of those dreadful diseases that nobody quite knew the extent of in those days.
Yeah.
I think Freddie Mercury had already passed away, sadly, of AIDS. So the idea about this was... I mean, to put it bluntly, Holly Johnson had been given a death sentence, if you see what I mean. I'm delighted and very happy to say Holly Johnson is alive to this day very well and living a reasonably normal life because, you know, science caught up and was able to help him. But that's what happened in those days.
I can't remember why you're telling this story now. Somebody has tweeted the name of Michael Cole. Is that the guy you're talking
Michael
about?
Cole, exactly. Lovely man, lovely gentleman.
You were going to tell me something about the Queen's speech. We've run out of time now because you told a different story.
Queen's speech has only ever had 4 different stories in it in over 50 years.
Really?
i.e. the Queen only talks about 4 different things.
Yeah, well,
that's what I've seen in a report.
Yeah, stick to what you know, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose you're right.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Is that your story?
Yeah, that is it. Yeah.
That's the whole point of that whole section.
Well, no, because I told you better stories built on the back of that one, didn't I?
Well, you might call them better. I'm not so sure.
Yeah, well, I would, and I think the audience would. Well, look, there's a load of people here. Michael Cole, he worked for the BBC, not ITV, Porgy. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah. Well,
and
as ever,
another one here, Michael Cole.
Most of the facts wrong.
No.
But we'll get there in the end.
No, I got them right. Yeah.
Coming up, we're going to do Ask Porky. So loads of questions.
Could be heartbreak.
If you want to try and squeeze any more in, you hashtag it Ask Porky, send it to @the2mics on Twitter, or look for us on our Facebook page. Here's the first one from Luke. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Who do you think should take Rosberg's seat at Mercedes next year, Porky?
Well, that's a very good question because whoever takes it has got to be able to work with Lewis Hamilton. The problem is that Lewis Hamilton is so dynamically...
difficult.
Dynamically ambitious, dynamically driven.
Yeah, difficult.
In becoming number one and staying number one driver in the world, that nobody else is going to be given an inch alongside Lewis Hamilton.
Well, he's not going to give them an inch.
He's not going to give them an inch. He's a 2 times world champion with Mercedes. He will demand absolute respect from the team. Anybody who comes in, Max Verstappen, for instance, young lad, 18 still. Who could, the reason why we used to employ Spitfire pilots at 18 is because they're at the height of their biological abilities. Yeah, and
I
Max
have to remind
Verstappen,
you to keep these short, these answers.
Max Verstappen will be fearless, so he's one contender, but the other guy, of course, they could bring in and say, well, he's got more titles than you, is Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel.
Because Vettel won 4, and Lewis Hamilton currently only has 3.
OK, Craig says this on Twitter. I've booked a lad's trip to Amsterdam in March and the wife doesn't know. How do I tell her?
Well, I wouldn't go, to be honest. I think these sort of things are a bit self-serving, you know what I mean? Lads' weekend in Amsterdam. What are you going to achieve by going there? The thing is that
society... you might have a good time.
Well, you might have a good time, but you might also regret it terribly. You might get yourself into trouble. You might wonder what you're doing there when there are other things in life that have values, not just getting bladderated in... Amsterdam. You might have to point these things out to make sure that those who are younger and are listening will go down the path of righteousness. If I were you, pal, I wouldn't go.
Here's one from John on Facebook. Dear Porky, my family are coming around tomorrow night to celebrate my son's graduation, but I can't be bothered with them. How do I get rid of them before the football starts without causing offence?
Oh, just ring up and say you've got the lurgy. And the minute they walk through the door, make sure you look like you've got the lurgy. Best way to do that is drink half a bottle of brandy before you get there. And, your feet. My eyes are streaming.
What about his son, though? He wants to celebrate his graduation, doesn't he?
Does he? I don't know. I'm not sure that a kid of 18 wants to be celebrating things with his parents and his in-laws, to be honest. I mean, in my family, that's the last thing they want to do.
Rob says this, we have a terrible pigeon problem. What's the most humane way of exterminating them?
Well, I do know people who actually go out with air rifles and start shooting pigeons.
Well, you can't advocate that sort of thing.
I am certainly not. I'm going to say, as an animal lover, I would never advocate any sort of form of cruelty.
They're protected, I think, aren't they, pigeons?
To animals. It depends where they are,
I think they're protected.
It depends where they are. Anyway, the funny thing is, I haven't seen a pigeon near my bird bath for quite a few weeks now.
Is it still frozen?
It wasn't this morning,
right,
but it has been 3 days out of the last 5.
Did you try putting a ping pong ball in it?
Well, I haven't acquired a ping pong ball. I haven't had time to go and shop for one.
Uh-huh.
But no, the point I was going to make is that I think pigeons push off for the winter, so I don't think you've got a problem at the moment. Yeah, they do.
Of course they don't.
I haven't seen any pigeons for about 10 days, 2
weeks.
Pigeons
do not fly south for the winter.
Well,
what do you think they go to Africa?
They fly off somewhere.
No, they don't.
I'll tell you what.
Go to Trafalgar Square. They're all there.
I used to see them hopping around up and down on my roof and actually tipping over my bird bath on one occasion when they got over enthusiastic about the contents of my bird bath. But I don't see them anymore, so I wouldn't worry.
No, okay. James says this, and he's writing this from Ireland. He says, there are proposals to build an airport in my village, which is supposedly going to be the second biggest in the country after Dublin. This will literally be built 1.5 miles from my house. Planes will not fly over the house, as will be to the side of the proposed runway.
Yeah.
As you're a man who's done well from property wheeling and dealing, will this increase or decrease the value of my property and the land in my area?
Well, it sounds like some sort of mad scheme, that you're building an airport in the middle of nowhere,
Well, a second airport near Dublin.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it doesn't sound... I've never heard about this proposal. The point is, you've got to find out now what are the compensation rights that you could receive for the blighting of your house, but... If I were you, I'd get onto it very early, mate, because I think you'll find there's an awful lot of people whose homes are on the route of HS2, that's the high-speed train line, literally is going to pass down the bottom of their garden, who've been denied any form of compensation because, for instance, they say, well, the train's more than 100 feet away from your house. That's 30 paces, It's a tough old position to be in.
Certainly is. Rich says, Porky, when you check into a 5-star hotel and you've stayed in many and you close that door behind you, what is the first thing you do?
Well, I used to hit the minibar, of course, because that's what we always used to do in the days when
hit
we were on the road.
minibar?
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's the first thing you do?
Yeah, well, I used to. Yeah, I used to. Now, I think you'll find the first thing I do is I check all the channels on the television, not the adult channels, I hasten to add.
Certainly not.
But I like to make sure that I've got a news channel, whether it be Sky or BBC World or something like that. And I then make absolutely sure that anything I've got to watch programme-wise is going to be there. After that, I check the night menu in case I'm going to be out late and I want to come back and take dining in my room.
I see.
Or my suite, as it usually is, And after that, I just like to know the layout of the room.
Do you not check to see if it's got a white toweling robe?
No, because I would never wear one anyway. I think that's preposterous
Really?
and presumptuous. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to me.
How bizarre.
Yeah.
Joe Mann says this, I've been in a new job 3 months and it isn't for me. It's boring and depressing. Should I stay or do something new?
No, you've got to do something new, man. You can't just get up in the morning and say, got to drag myself up to work for another day's work. I mean, look, we all have to earn a living. Or a lot of us have to earn a living. A lot of people in this country don't actually earn a living because they prefer not to, because Gordon Brown constructed a welfare state, which means they don't actually have to if they don't want to, which largely is. Largely is. Really? It was a client.
I think you'll find it was Clement Attlee who constructed a welfare state.
Well, not to the extent it is these days. A client electorate and all that kind of stuff. I would say, hold your head up high, man. Chuck in that job and get another one. Everybody can get a job. On every bus in this country, a sign is written on the back saying bus drivers required at all times and a number. Go and be a bus driver. It's a good job.
On that subject, Mr. Bertie says, what would Porky do if he actually lost all his money?
I would start again. I have had situations during the course of my life when things have gone the wrong way. I've had reversals, and I've had situations in which sometimes I've got up in the morning and thought to myself, what will become of me?
Yes.
I have to admit that when I was about my 20s, early 20s, and I was a young reporter on local newspapers, I did wonder where it would all end up.
Yes.
And would I have to apply when I got to 60 or something to the local authority for a local authority housing unit.
What, you used to worry about that when you were in your 20s?
Yes, definitely.
Really?
Yes.
That's not normal.
No, well, it is.
Most people in their 20s don't worry about that.
No, I did. I thought, what does the future hold for me? It's got to be a good future, not a bad future,
right.
Okay?
Okay, so it's worked out quite well then.
It's worked out.
Since I presume you're not going to be asking for a free accommodation unit.
I will not be asking for an accommodation unit from the local authority, otherwise known as a council flat.
James says this, Porky, the person I work with knows a lot of famous people. Do I tag along for lunch or have my lunch with the great unwashed?
Well, that's a bit unclear, that question. If you mean that you get the reflected glory of your mate knowing some famous people, that is a pathetic position to be in life. And, you know, you're a worthless individual who's actually got his head screwed on the wrong way. However, if you're saying that your friend knows influential people who could possibly help you influence your career and help you to go forward in life because you would skillfully use the contacts that these people have, then I'm all for it.
OK. Mark says this. Dear Porky, raise the scandal involving the press and their dubious actions. How many sleepless nights did you have that some of your less than honest practices would be revealed?
I never, ever practiced anything that was less than honest. And sometimes I had to push right to the limit, so very close to the wind, in order to achieve a victory, but victory was all that mattered, and therefore, providing I wasn't breaking the law or breaking my own moral code and standards, I would sleep well.
Almost impossible to break that, really.
I would sleep well.
Joe says, Porky, with Christmas coming up and you being a sprout expert, should the bottom of sprouts have a cross in them or not?
Definitely not. I read, funny enough, only this week in one of my cooking journals, that if you cut a cross in the bottom of your sprouts, all the goodness goes out of them very, very quickly, and they become soft and mushy, and the best thing to do with sprouts is actually microwave them.
Microwave.
Yeah.
OK. Final question.
Yeah.
We've got loads more, but we've only got time for one more. And this is from Jim, who says, every winter my feet get like blocks of ice, even through thick socks.
Yes.
Any advice, Porkmeister?
Well, use a water bottle. That's the best old-fashioned method to keep your feet warm.
Hot water bottle?
No, a hot water bottle, yeah. I used a hot water bottle this week, as I explained to you in a show earlier this week, on my back, and it had a dramatically good effect. You can't beat the old-fashioned remedies. Water bottle.
Oh, hot water bottle. That was, of course, Ask Porky. We'll have some more of the same time next week.
Yeah.
This is TalkSport. We are the two mics, and of course Christmas is coming, and as the goose is getting fat, I suppose you might say one of the things that people do is sometimes buy puppies for Christmas, which is not the greatest thing to do. John Gurlis is here, campaigns officer at the Dogs Trust. John, a very good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Mike. And Mike.
Now, you've also got Pete with you as well.
Peter, the Chihuahua.
Who's Chihuahua, as Mr. Parry would pronounce it, but Chihuahua is probably what most people would say.
Yeah.
He's a very small Chihuahua.
A lot of them are, but he's particularly small, yes.
Yeah. And how old is Pete?
Does he bark at all?
Not really, unless
Look
you
at
got
my finger now for the benefit of our millions of listeners.
I wouldn't do that.
He is a beautiful little dog.
very well behaved little boy.
Yeah.
If you ring a loud bell or something, you might bark for you.
Really?
I would suggest probably not very good for your listeners.
Yeah, he's very calm considering he's in a kind of unusual place with lots of weird lights.
State of shock, I think.
Yeah. So, tell us about your campaign, because it's not to do with just any old Christmas campaign, is it?
No.
It's the Socks Trust you're changing your name to.
Socks Trust, absolutely. Most people are probably familiar with our famous "A Dog is for Life, not just for Christmas" message.
Sure.
We've been saying that now since the 1970s, and yet year after year, the months and weeks following the Christmas period, we receive more calls than ever. We received 3,500 calls this year in January from people looking to give us their dogs because they couldn't deal with them, they didn't want them as presents, they didn't realise the responsibility, the cost, the effort, the time, the training that was involved. And so what we're saying is, in fact, this year, if you're thinking about getting a dog, don't consider getting a present that won't be given back. Who doesn't love a good pair of socks at Christmas? I've got one pair for you to share.
That's very kind.
Well, one sock each, as it were.
So you can you can get the socks online at sockstrust.org.uk.
Okay.
And all the money, of course, goes back to Dogs Trust.
I was going to say, I mean, the slogan "A dog is for life, not just for Christmas" must be one of the oldest slogans still actually in use.
It's one of the most famous.
So you could have a look at them.
Oh, what?
Don't have a look at them.
You threw them in a way that suggested you didn't want them.
No, not at all.
Oh, so would you like them?
Sorry?
The UK size 5 to 10.
Yeah, but they're yellow. I don't wear yellow socks.
They're too big for you, are they?
No. I just don't wear yellow socks. But it's very kind of you to bring them in.
What, so John's come all the way in with a Chihuahua and you've rejected the socks?
No, I haven't rejected the socks. To me, those socks shouldn't be worn. Those socks should be hung up at home to remind you that actually you shouldn't go around encouraging people to buy dogs for Christmas.
Yes.
Okay?
Well, as long as the message gets through, I suppose you don't mind. My apologies for his slightly rude behaviour.
No, it's not rude
at all. You have to put up with that, unfortunately. I have to put up with
it.
Well,
are you going to wear them?
I would wear them, yes.
They're yellow socks.
I would wear them. I have a pair of yellow socks.
Rubbish. You wouldn't wear yellow socks. You look more stupid than you do
now.
I'll
tell you why. I had to buy a pair of yellow socks to go to Piers Morgan's party that you didn't get invited to.
Yeah, no, of course I didn't.
I'll have you know they're very popular socks, irrespective of whether you would wear them or not.
Yes.
Luckily, people are buying them up in their troves. So,
right.
we'll assume that someone thinks
so.
they're fashionable.
So people are buying them, but they're not necessarily buying them to wear. They're buying them because they want to contribute to the campaign. Yes, and they will hang them on their tree. They'll hang them up on their tree.
No, but
they'll say, "This is me, part of the dog campaign." They won't wear them.
But you can also wear them. Then when you're sitting somewhere, like in, say, one of those coffee shops, and your trouser leg sort of slightly pulls up, and people could look at your sock and go, "Oh, what's the sock's trust?"
No.
And then you can tell them about it, and that's one way of spreading the word, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Very few people will wear them. They will have them in their house as a symbol and a mark of joining this great campaign.
Well, you could hang them up on your cactus, your Christmas cactus.
Yeah, I could do,
but, of course, nobody would see them because you never have anybody round.
Well, what's that got to do with it? We should be talking about the dog. What about the history of this lovely little creature sitting on your lap now?
Yes, Peter is, we think, around 4 years old. He was rescued a couple of years ago by one of our members of staff. He was at one of our rehoming centres. We have 20 across the country. We look after around...
Do you have one in Kenilworth?
We do.
Yeah, because that's where I went and visited a dog that I supported on your charity.
Oh, thank you.
And there's a big muddy field outside where I took him for a walk.
Yeah,
and all
that's
that kind
right.
of stuff.
They have to be in...
What was the dog's name?
The dog's name was...
Just make it up.
No, I can't remember.
That's what he normally does.
I can't remember now.
No, it's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah,
You can't remember the dog's name.
He died. And then, but by the way, he used to send me a Valentine's card.
No, he didn't.
For some strange reason. No, he did.
No, the dog didn't send you that.
I believe me. I got a Valentine's card
What,
from
you think
the
you went
dog.
to the post office?
No, you idiot. But what I'm saying is part of the money that I gave resulted in getting nice, affectionate messages from the dog.
Well, I mean, I suppose Eddie's supporting the store, right?
Sorry about this.
That's quite okay. So Peter was from I think Evesham Centre, and he was abandoned by the family that had him for one reason or another.
I mean, who abandons a dog? That's awful, isn't it?
You'd be surprised. So we hear all sorts of stories about.
I mean, just by the side of the road, or what?
Sometimes, but responsibly if they come to us often. We hear stories about the fact that the dog's tail's wagging too much and it was knocking things off the table. We heard a story once about some furniture that was bought and it didn't now match the dog, so the dog went, not the furniture.
That's shocking.
Absolutely terrible.
I've got a very boisterous Labrador.
Yes,
who basically makes life very miserable and but very happy at the same time. So, so it's great. But
this is it. You put the work in, the time and the effort, and you'll get an incredibly rewarding relationship.
And you were saying that still so many people get a dog at Christmas, not expecting it to be something that they have to work at or that they don't fancy. I mean, is it because smaller dogs are now more popular that's happening a lot?
So, well, actually, and bigger dogs too, thanks to the popularity of shows like Game of Thrones and Harry Potter and the like. Dogs come in all shapes and sizes, and the dogs that we have in our centres come in all shapes and sizes. Unfortunately, people, I think, expect that they're going to get a dog and it's going to be, trained and ready to go straight away, but they don't think about the, those cold December mornings you need to get up and walk it.
But I wonder, because Mike was mentioning the other day that there's this new kind of accessory bag type thing you can put a chihuahua in, and some people see dogs as a bit of small dogs a bit of an accessory.
Yeah, and the problem with any sort of fashion trend is that eventually they're going to have to come to an end naturally. But that's the nature of fashion trends. Dogs aren't fashion accessories. They don't know what breed they are. They don't know they're fashionable. No. They're they're living creatures that want to love you and are there to be loved. And as I say, you put the time, the work, the effort, the money as well. It'll be worth it.
I totally agree. I mean, dogs are particularly useful for old people, aren't they? Because don't they have an innate sense of an old person not being able to move very fast and all that kind of stuff? And
I guess it depends on the dog, and if they, relationships can be built over time. But actually, some of the older dogs that we have in our centres could be very, very useful for old people.
Yes.
Just in terms of companionship and also getting out of the house, of course, if nothing else.
Right.
Yes.
And so, do your centres have, generally speaking, dogs in them all the year round?
We have.
And how long? I mean, I know this is probably a difficult question, perhaps, to ask and answer. How long do they stay there for? I mean, do you have like a policy on that?
No policy. We never put a healthy dog down. So if a dog's with us, it's going to stay with us until it can be rehomed responsibly to a family or someone that can look after it properly. We look after about 17,000 dogs across the country in a year. We will take a dog and never rehome it, and we will look after it as well as we can. So a dog is for life. That's a message for the public, but also it's true for us as well.
I mean, there are these classic cases, aren't there, of some dogs who just simply can't get a home, and you've had them for years, haven't you?
Absolutely. We call them. In fact, some of them have got bigger bedrooms bedrooms and houses than I do. They live the life of Riley. No, they're there, and for one reason or another they can't be rehomed, or it's not responsible to rehome them because of their background. But we will look after them as long as they're they're healthy and have a lot to give, and they're comfortable there in the knowledge that they got all the warmth of food and everything else that they need.
Nevertheless, a dog, because they like humans a lot, don't they, would like a personal companion, not being part of like an extended family, which is what one of your centres is, presumably, because a dog wants a master, really, doesn't it? A dog wants to be able to pick up a paper and run to his master's feet and drop it at his feet and get his slippers and all that kind of stuff, doesn't he?
Yes, absolutely right. And what about...
Sorry, why were you so dismissive about that? That's what a dog wants.
Well, you know nothing about dogs.
I know really.
He had one dog when he was a child, and unfortunately the dog suffered
it was epileptic.
An epileptic episode.
Bashed its head on the kitchen wall and died.
But
he thinks that's very funny.
Well, I don't think it's funny.
He thinks it's my fault. I was a 7-year-old child.
But what I find puzzling about it is that you never asked your parents what happened to the dog afterwards.
Well, they just said the dog's gone. They were trying to be kind to me. Like didn't want to traumatise me.
Like a line from a sort of mafia film.
No.
Nobody could do anything about it. Are you expecting, with this campaign, that there might hopefully be slightly fewer dogs abandoned over Christmas?
Every year, unfortunately now, as I say, since the 1970s, we've been pushing this, a dog is for life message, and with Socks Trust, we're hoping that more socks and dogs are going to be given as presents.
Yes.
The message is, if you're thinking about buying a dog as a present, don't. If you're thinking about getting a dog for the family, do the research on the breed, on your lifestyle, whether you can, give the dog the life it deserves as much as whether the dog can fit into your lifestyle as well.
And if somebody does want a dog, would they be wise to approach one of your centres rather than going to somebody outside of just a private breeder?
There are thousands of dogs in our care, all of which, most of which are looking for a loving home. So certainly visit dogstrust.org.uk to find out how to do that.
Brilliant. Well, John, thank you very much indeed, and thank you very much to Peter for coming in. He's very well behaved, isn't he?
Very well behaved. It's a lovely little dog. Yeah. Did it have a rough time before it got to you?
No, I think it was probably fairly well looked after, but unfortunately just not wanted.
No, okay.
A bit like you, Corky.
No, not like me at all.
Quite well looked after, but just not wanted.
No, I'll ignore that trite and ridiculous comment.
This is TalkSport.
Thank you.
Simon's asked on Twitter, at the Two Mics, can we have a picture of Porky holding the dog, please?
Yes.
Well, there is one coming, actually, so we'll be putting that out very shortly.
Yeah.
And Hells is reminding you, of course, that you used to recommend setting fire to bats in Australia.
No.
#animal lover.
No, I didn't. No,
a lot of people are saying as well that yellow socks are good. Gabriel says, I'd wear yellow socks. They will go great and stand out with black trousers and a yellow shirt that I have.
Well, if I was Michael Jackson, I would attire in that sort of...
He used to wear white socks a lot, didn't he?
He used to wear white socks and sparkly shoes and sparkly trousers and all that kind of stuff. But I just don't think, for any self-respectful, man of early middle age, you should be wearing yellow socks.
Well, funnily enough, David has reminded us that he sent that you once sent out a picture back in. Let's see what the date is on it. Back in
April,
year,
I think.
April of this year. Of me sitting before a show that we were doing, wearing a pair of yellow socks.
Because I thought you looked particularly daft at the time.
And do you know what? The shirt that I'm wearing in this picture is the one shirt that I haven't accounted for, which must be the 7th shirt.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, just been reminded.
Because I'd often wondered what the 7th shirt could have been.
Yes.
And I'm actually quite pleased about that, because it was a bit of an old one. It was fraying a bit.
Okay.
So actually that's not a problem.
Okay.
And then here's one about the Dogs Trust. It's from Stephen. He says, Porky claims to have supported a dog through the Dogs Trust. He didn't know the name, only that it died.
Well, unfortunately,
Another Porky jinx.
Well, it's not really, is it? Dogs don't live forever. In fact, 1 year of a dog's life is 7 years of a human's life.
Well, it doesn't actually work like that.
Doesn't it?
Funnily enough, I thought that was the case as well.
Yes.
But actually, it moves at different as the dog gets older.
Yeah.
The age concertina's down. So, for example, the first year, yes, is about 7, depending on the size of the dog.
Yeah.
Second year is about sort of 14, maybe. But it actually, the dog that I've got now, which is almost 3, is almost 30 in human years.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently.
And how long was
and then it kind of slows down again. Labrador's lifespan generally about 11 or 12 years.
Is that right?
Although but it doesn't. What I'm saying is, it doesn't keep going up sort of 8, 10, 30 years. It starts to concertina down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, thank you very much to the Dogs Trust for bringing in the socks. You were terribly rude to me about the socks.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
No.
I was able to rescue the situation.
I said I would hang them on my Christmas tree as a symbol to people to remind them a dog is for life. But, going around wearing
nobody
yellow
will
socks...
see them if you put them on your Christmas cactus, will they?
Well, nobody will see them if you wear them on your feet under a pair of trousers, will they?
They will, because you can see my socks in the picture of me wearing yellow socks.
I wouldn't go up to a bloke who's in a bar with his legs crossed and exposing yellow socks and say, oh, that's nice yellow socks, what are they for?
Depends what sort of bar.
Well, exactly, but nobody else would either. So I think,
OK, all right, calm down. down.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Jim Proudfoot
Indeed.
instead. Get some sense into the show. Jim, a very good afternoon to you.
Afternoon. How you doing? I'm just throwing my yellow socks away as we speak.
Quite right, too. Well, I mean, if you had yellow socks, it would probably go with Arsenal's away strip, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. Well, if I had black, sort of a little bit, bit of black piping down the side, I'm sure it would.
Absolutely
yeah,
right. Now we've sort of been looking at some of these Champions League games tonight. From various sort of betting perspectives, they're interesting, but from many other perspectives, they're not, are they?
Well, this one, as far as Arsenal are concerned, is only interesting if PSG have a bad night against Ludogorets.
And that would have to be a horrendous night, wouldn't it?
Well, I can't see it happening. I mean, Ludogorets frightened Arsenal, you'll remember, in the game in Bulgaria. They were 2-up against Arsenal inside 15 minutes. Arsenal don't concede too many early goals, but they were 2 down inside 15 minutes that day. Now, if they can play like that today, then they might have a minuscule chance of being able to get a draw against PSG. That keeps the group alive as far as Arsenal are concerned. But the bottom line is, it could be just as difficult a draw for Arsenal if they finish top of the group as if they finish second. I mean, if you look at one of the other groups taking place tonight, Bayern Munich and Atletico Madrid, they're both through. Atletico have won the group and Bayern are going to come second. So even if Arsenal win the group, they could still get Bayern Munich. So I don't think it's going to be necessarily a passport to an easier ride in the first of the knockout rounds. If Arsenal were to win the group, the only advantage is if they win the group, as Arsene Wenger pointed out in his press conference yesterday, what it does guarantee you is that the second leg is at home, and that means if it goes to extra time, you've got half an hour more at home in front of your own fans, which is what you'd want.
Sure. And it is a bit disappointing if you're an Arsenal fan to keep coming second, particularly in this group, because there was a pretty good opportunity for Arsenal to win it, wasn't there?
It was a half-decent opportunity to win it, but when you look at it over the 2 games against PSG, they picked up 2 draws. You could argue that PSG were the better side, certainly in London, in the second game between the two. And from that point of view, had Arsenal won this group, or were Arsenal to win this group, it would be some achievement. I don't think that Arsene Wenger will be beating himself up about finishing second.
Have you seen that killer instinct in Arsenal that they need to get back to winning major trophies, Jim, which they seem to have lost for the last decade?
Yeah, but they were so good the other day, weren't they? And that's the thing. And it's in patches at the moment.
Depends who they're playing, doesn't it? Really, to be honest, West Ham are not not even a good team, let alone a great team, are they?
No, West Ham, Mike, are in the bottom 4. Yeah. So absolutely, you're right. What they have been able to do though is score flurries of goals late in games. They did it against Sunderland. They did it against West Ham.
Yes, that's true.
And they have impressed me from that point of view. Alexis Sanchez is a breathtaking player. His hat trick the other day was a sensational one, and it is individual brilliance like that they might be able to harness later in this tournament. I just hope that they can get through. Obviously, they got through the group, but I just hope that they can get through the first knockout round to get through to the quarterfinals and end this jinx, which has been going on quite a few years now.
Yeah. It seems an awful long time, Jim, since France. Was that where they got to the final? 2006, was it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
As you say, long time ago.
Yeah, long time since they were regarded as, a premier team in the European competitions. And, of course, they have a track record, a consistent one, of going out to the next stage, haven't they?
They do. I mean, there are 2 ways of looking at that, and that is that they have a consistent track record of getting out of the group and of getting through to the last 16 of the Champions League year after year, which is, how Arsene Wenger looks at it, how some of the Arsenal supporters look at it. But obviously there are others that take the opposite point of view and see that it's no quarterfinals in the Champions League for so many years now.
Well, that's the thing. It does have a certain inevitability about it, doesn't it? That you always think Arsenal will go through and then they'll get knocked out in the first stage of the knockout stage.
Well, just a bit of luck with the draw this time. I know that some seasons they've had horrendous draws in the round of 16 and some years they've had slightly easier ones, but just hope that they have a little bit of luck in running in the draw this time round and give themselves an opportunity.
Yeah, I do as well. I'd like to see Arsenal doing well because they deserve to. They are a great British club. We've got to preserve the track record in Europe, Jim, which has been slipping away over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what's interesting. The other dilemma tonight is how Arsene Wenger approaches it. Does he look at it and take sort of the widely held pessimistic view that I hold, that the group is all over, they're going to finish second because PSG are going to beat Ludogorets, and consequently he'll rest a few for the games that are coming up over the weekend, maybe not give Sanchez a run tonight? Or does he look at it and say, well, Sanchez is bang in form, and I want that form to continue. So I'll use him while he's hot. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how strong a side Arsene Wenger feels tonight.
Yeah, sure. And how disappointed he will be if he does feel a weak side and he doesn't get a result, and then something weird happens in Paris and Ludogorets suddenly get a win just because, for some reason, PSG are resting players.
Well, that is the scenario that he would want to avoid most of all, because that's the only scenario I think tonight that would leave Arsene Wenger looking a little bit foolish if he were to name a weakened side, and then it would transpire that had he named a stronger side, they might have won the group. But as I say, I don't necessarily think there's a huge premium to be placed on winning the group this year. Some years there are, but it just depends how the fixtures fall and how the results go over the 6 match nights across the continent. I don't think this year there is a huge premium in winning the group.
Sure, but you're live tonight from 7 o'clock, Jim, anyway, right?
Yeah, and keeping everybody up to date with everything else that is going on as well. A couple of domestic games, but obviously there are 8 Champions League games tonight, including Manchester City against Celtic. We're across the lot.
Great stuff. Jim
Excellent.
Proudfoot
Thanks,
coming
Jim.
up with Mark Saggers a little bit later on, 7 o'clock tonight, of course. Live TalkSport commentary of Basel against Arsenal. Also on TalkSport 2, you can hear Bayern Munich versus Atletico Madrid. This is TalkSport.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne, podcast from the two mics. No, he needs a defence, not an offence. The offence is not working. Get into the defence, Bob. It says here, after listening to your broadcast recently, I became quite concerned about the possibility of an asteroid colliding with the Earth. Wildlife would also have to be... I'm sorry, Len, we can't read any more of this because it's drivel. But anyway...
Oh, my God, it's a copy of Rooney Tunes.
It's a copy of my best-selling book, Rooney Tunes, right?
Which is also now available for a penny in Amazon.
Quickly, hear me ripping this envelope.
There's another one from Len in Liverpool.
It's not from Len in Liverpool. I've just opened it. It says on the outside, Mr. Mike Graham, Mr. Mike Parry, TalkSport Radio. And I opened it. It said, please pass this on to Danny Kelly. so